Chapter 170. Looking at the two miracle stones on the table, Feng-Chi fell into deep thought. He had no idea how to use these two miracle stones, nor did he know what the value of the miracle stones was. However, according to the domain assassin, this seemed to be a very rare and precious item. While he was thinking, it was already midnight. With the midnight bell ringing above the school officially entered its resting time. Most of the school's lights were turned off. The Star City University Library was also cleared at this time. The librarian began to clean up the place and count the books. After waiting for another hour, he opened the window and carefully observed the situation outside. He was still in his combat form, so he couldn't go out to meet anyone. The only way he could think of was to use psychokinesis to go out of the window in the dark and head straight to the back mountain of Star City University from the air. Then, he would hunt animals in the back mountain and absorb their vitality. His gaze swept across the shaded walkway outside the window, and he suddenly thought of something. Narrator, can't you check the surroundings? Why don't you help me check if there's anyone nearby? You didn't ask me either. If I didn't ask you, can't you take the initiative? Capitalists don't play like this. Not only is there no salary, but you want me to take the initiative to work overtime. Capitalists should at least talk about their employees' dreams before they start to exploit them. You just want me to take the initiative? Hearing this, Feng-Chi was stunned and said embarrassedly, "The problem is that I don't have what you want. Otherwise, I would definitely give it to you." "Who said you don't have it? I just want to hear you call me daddy." "Stupid system, go eat sh*t." After some verbal interaction, the narrator finally gave a hint. After confirming that there was no one around, he released his psychokinesis and flew out of the window, flying in the night sky. A moment later, he landed in the back mountain. The night was hazy. However, in his combat form, his eyes were two burning flames, so he could still see the environment in the dark. "Narrator, get to work, find prey." In response to his request, the narrator cursed and began to search the back mountain. Soon, the narrator gave a reply. "I've only found 5 large creatures here, which are wild boars. The rest are generally small animals, such as snakes, earthworms, and rabbits. It's difficult to satisfy your vitality requirements. Looks like you'll be busy tonight." Location, Feng-Chi said without hesitation. 12 o'clock, 3 earthworms in the soil. Feng-Chi was speechless. "Stupid system. No matter how many earthworms there are, they won't be enough to fill the gaps between my teeth. Change to other prey." After another round of verbal sparring, Feng-Chi made his move. Following the narration's instructions, he shuttled through the woods at the back of the mountain and began to hunt the wild animals at the back of the mountain to absorb their vitality. A few hours later, after killing a wild boar with one punch, Feng-Chi absorbed a ball of abundant qi and blood. Feeling his vitality gradually recovering, he knew that he was not far from changing his form. At this moment, the narrator's deliberately lowered voice sounded in his mind. Why did the wild rabbits at the back of the mountain die in a bizarre manner? Why did the black-skinned wild boar howl in the middle of the night? Is that bone-like figure under the moonlight a human or a ghost? What unknown secrets are hidden behind the bizarre and tragic deaths of countless wild animals at the back of the mountain of the Academy? Is all of this a loss of morality or a distortion of human nature? Is there a pair of invisible hands behind the bloody massacre? Let's go to 3 o'clock in the morning and enter the inner world of the Bone Man to explore the secrets behind the Bone Man. Feng-Chi was speechless. The veins on his forehead throbbed, and he couldn't help but say, "Stop fooling around. Hurry up and find the next one. There's a risk of being exposed when the sky turns bright." Okay. In the following time, Feng-Chi seized the time to sweep the back of the mountain. Finally, an hour later, he absorbed enough vitality. With a thought, rich vitality appeared on the surface of his body and enveloped him. In the blink of an eye, he changed back to his original appearance. The danger of being exposed was resolved. He breathed a sigh of relief and immediately floated up. A moment later, he returned to the dormitory through the window. He came to the desk and sat down. His eyes swept over the 2 miracle stones that were still on the desk. Until now, he still didn't understand what the miracle stones were used for. "Do you want to try eating it?" It's just like eating the rune crystal. Maybe the stone contains a lot of energy. Hearing the reminder from the narrator, he immediately nodded. He had thought of letting himself in the future dream try it. It was safer this way. After all, the miracle stones might be poisonous, and there was a risk of being poisoned if eaten by mistake. But after thinking about it carefully, he felt that it was inappropriate. In the future, he would lose all his talent abilities. Maybe a very weak poison would cause him to die suddenly, wasting his life for nothing. But in the real world, it was different. Not only was his physical fitness far beyond the sacrifice line, but he could also decisively switch to his battle form if there was an unexpected situation. This way, he wouldn't have to be afraid of the poison flowing and spreading in his blood. So, he decided to try it himself. Grabbing the thumb-sized miracle stone, he put it to his mouth and took a small bite. With the help of his tough teeth talent, his teeth easily bit off a small piece of the miracle stone. Then he chewed and swallowed it. He called out the panel and changed the energy recovery bar to his status window. He began to wait for the miracle stone's effect to take effect. While waiting, the panel status changed as expected. The original 42,310,000 bloodline evolution points began to slowly increase. Every time it jumped, it would increase by 1 point. However, after jumping a little more than 10 times, his bloodline evolution points stopped increasing. That's it. Feng Qi was stunned. He thought that the miracle stone had some magical effect. In the end, it only gave him 13 bloodline evolution points. I feel like I've been tricked. Holding the missing corner of the miracle stone, his mood was complicated. He thought that it was a treasure in his hand, but he didn't expect it to be of little value. I seem to understand. This thing is indeed a treasure. Moreover, it's an extremely precious treasure. Why do you say that? He immediately asked. Your body is extremely special. It has the ability to devour and evolve. However, other species don't have this ability. If they want to evolve, they often need several generations of their clansmen to pass down the inheritance. They need to raise their descendants to be even more outstanding. Only like this can they form an outstanding inherited bloodline. For example, you think that it's easy to obtain a talent, but do you know how much of a price a domain creature has to pay to imprint a spell into their bloodline to become a race talent? That's why this miracle stone that can directly increase the strength of your bloodline is an extremely precious treasure to any race. However, to you, this toy is truly useless. When you enter the future dream, you can casually kill a domain creature and obtain a similar amount of bloodline evolution points. Hearing the narration's analysis, he suddenly understood why the Black Shadow was so heartbroken about the miracle stone. If a race wanted to become stronger, the strength of their bloodline was extremely important. Among domain creatures, there were strong and weak ones. Some domain creatures were born at a height that weak domain creatures could not reach in their lifetime. This was related to the bloodline inheritance. The miracle stone seemed to increase the strength of the bloodline by a small amount, but it increased the future potential of a race. After understanding the importance of the miracle stone, he threw the remaining half of the miracle stone into his mouth and swallowed it. One miracle stone only gave him 52 bloodline evolution points, but it was better than nothing. As for the remaining miracle stone, he originally wanted to eat it, but he suddenly thought of the domain assassin. He felt that this miracle stone could be used to exchange information with him. He might even use him to do some things. Thinking of this, he took out the metal box in front of his desk and threw the miracle stone inside. Lying back on his chair, he fell into deep thought. He began to summarize the latest information he received, as well as the influence that his change in reality might have on the future. In the next 2 days, other than class time, Feng Qi devoted himself to planning and studying for the future. At 7 o'clock in the evening, he was at his desk searching for programming knowledge to study. At this time, his phone rang. He picked up the phone on the desk and saw that it was a call from Lin Ran. After picking up, Lin Ran's voice came through. Brother Qi, the Mid-Autumn Festival is about to start. Where are you? I'm coming. Feng Qi immediately replied. After hanging up the phone, he stood up and left the dorm, heading straight to the field. A moment later, he arrived at the field. At this time, the field was brightly lit. Colorful lanterns were suspended in the air with the Mid-Autumn Festival riddles written on them. On the field's green grass, there was a table placed every 3 steps, neatly arranged. On the table, there was a pot of osmanthus wine, a bronze Jew used for drinking, and a box of beautiful mooncakes. Bai Fuxing's Mid-Autumn Festival message to the students was printed on it, and there was a red bag under the table. At the front of the field was the stage for the Mid-Autumn Festival. Before the festival officially started, the big screen on the stage was playing an introduction to the Mid-Autumn Festival customs, and the radio was playing When Will the Moon Appear. The festive atmosphere was overwhelming. Looking at the sign on the grass, he began to look for his class's assigned position. "Brother Chi, over here." At this moment, he heard Lin Ran's shout. Looking in the direction of the voice, he saw Lin Ran, who was dressed in traditional Chinese clothing, waving at him with a cheeky smile. At this moment, Lu Yu and the others had already arrived. Even Mu Qing, who was always shy, had already sat down. However, her eyes were fixed on the mooncakes, and her thoughts were clear at a glance. He sat down at the table with his name on it and looked at Lin Ran. "Why did you change your clothes?" "It's to better integrate into the festive atmosphere. These costumes are provided by the school for free. If you have any ideas, you can change at the stadium. I went early and managed to grab a set that fits me. I reckon the ancient costume troupe will be here soon." The moment Lin Ran said that, Feng Qi saw a group of figures dressed in ancient costumes approaching the field. As they chatted, it was already 8 in the evening. As the lights on the stage lit up, Bai Fuxing appeared on the stage in a dark-colored ancient costume. He began to read the opening speech of the Mid-Autumn Festival Gala with a smile. When Bai Fuxing announced the start of the gala, there was a warm applause in the field. The program of the gala began. The only thing that Feng Qi regretted was that the most appropriate moon appreciation of the Mid-Autumn Festival couldn't take place. This was because the sky had been covered by thick clouds. Just as he was lamenting in his heart, a stream of light streaked across the sky and arrived above the school. Like Feng Qi, all the students present raised their heads and looked over. They saw the figure in the sky penetrate the clouds. Then, the clouds flickered with a gorgeous light. The thick clouds were pushed away, revealing a bright, full moon. Realizing that the school had invited a super powerhouse, the students were curious and wanted to know who this human powerhouse was. However, after the figure parted the clouds, it turned into a stream of light and disappeared from everyone's sight. The gala continued. Compared to the graduation gala of Star City High School, the gala of Star City University was very grand. The performers on the stage were all famous dancers, singers, and artists. Star City University didn't spend a single cent for them to come. Being able to perform at Star City University was the dream of many people. After Star City University released the news to the public, a large number of professionals came to sign up. All the expenses of the Mid-Autumn Festival Gala were covered by the celebrities of the business world. At this moment, Feng Qi was drinking osmanthus wine and looking at the bright full moon hanging high in the sky. He was intoxicated by the festive atmosphere. The octagonal wind chimes under the lanterns above his head made a ding-ding sound in the breeze. His tense heart finally relaxed at this moment. "Brother Chi, this osmanthus wine is delicious." Lin Ran raised the bronze Jew with an intoxicated expression. When Feng Qi heard this, he raised his glass and smiled in response. Then, he followed Lin Ran's lead and took a big gulp. He opened the mooncake gift box. Inside were 10 mooncakes of different flavors. Each mooncake was engraved with a word, and when put together, it read, "The bright moon shines above the sea, and the horizon shares this moment." The festive atmosphere gradually reached a climax as they watched the gala, admired the moon, ate mooncakes, and drank osmanthus wine. When it was close to dawn, Bai Fuxing appeared on the stage again. His face was slightly red as he read out the message to the students. Then he asked the students to take out the red bag on the table. After Feng Qi took out the things inside, he found that it was a folded blessing sky lantern, a piece of paper, and a pen. Next was the last segment of the Mid-Autumn Festival Gala. Write down the message and release the blessing sky lantern. At this moment, Lin Ran leaned over. Brother Chi, let me see what you wrote. I wrote that I wish myself a long life. Feng Chi grinned. As a cultivator, is this your only goal? This goal is as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Looking at Lin Ran, who had a face full of question marks, he didn't explain. Instead, he asked curiously, what about you? What's your message? Of course, I hope that I can become an outstanding cultivation technique researcher in the future, Lin Ran said with a chuckle. Senior sister, what about you? Feng Chi turned his head to look to the other side. I hope that the future will get better and better. Everyone will always be happy. Looking at the smile on Mu Qing's face, Feng Chi smiled back. Mu Qing's seemingly simple dream was actually filled with twists and turns and difficulties. And she had always been on the path of pursuing her dreams without stopping. After folding the paper and putting it into the sky lantern, Feng Chi pressed the button on the sky lantern. Immediately, candlelight lit up inside. The scattered light flickered with the flickering flame. A moment later, when Bai Fuxing finished reading and shouted, "Release the message," Feng Chi and all the students released their hands from the sky lantern. Immediately, countless lanterns on the field rose into the sky with the wind. The scene was very spectacular. When the blessing sky lantern gradually rose, the sky was illuminated by the lanterns. Amidst the laughter and laughter, the midnight bell of the academy reverberated. A smile appeared on Feng Chi's face as he looked at the Kongming lanterns that lit up the sky. All this beauty was also the reason why he swore to protect it with his life. Chapter 171. Star City University Cafeteria. During breakfast time, the Gonfan trio gathered in the north corner. At this moment, Feng Chi was eating breakfast and chatting with Lin Ran about the academy's teaching system. During his time teaching at Star City University, he discovered a flaw in the Star City University system. All the students were memorizing the latest version of the cultivation system framework released by the Tiger Soul Institute. This was because understanding this part of the content and passing the quarterly free assessment could increase their credits and affect their end-of-year evaluation. However, in Feng Chi's opinion, this was completely unnecessary. He understood that the students of the cultivation method research class needed to learn the latest version of the cultivation system framework. After all, this part of the content was indeed knowledge that the students of the cultivation method research class needed to understand. Only by understanding the real-time update of the cultivation system framework could they have a more thorough understanding of the cultivation system. However, there was no need for the other classes such as the combat class, the array formation class, and the medical class to master this content. Even if the students of these classes did not understand the cultivation system framework, it would not affect their future growth. However, because it could increase their credits, end-of-year evaluation, and even scholarships, the students of all classes were memorizing the cultivation system framework. This undoubtedly formed a serious inner scroll. It required the students to spend a lot of time memorizing the cultivation system framework that was updated quarterly, but it did not bring any practical meaning. In Feng Chi's opinion, understanding the cultivation system framework could indeed help the students develop in all aspects and cultivate a deeper understanding of the cultivation system framework. It could also reduce the number of detours. However, there is no need to link it with credits and evaluations. This would inevitably lead to a forced inner scroll. Apart from the students of the cultivation method research class, the other students could use the time they spent learning the cultivation system framework on more meaningful things. For example, they could use a deeper understanding of the subject they were studying. After listening to Feng Chi's explanation, Lin Ran smiled and replied, "Actually, most of the students of the cultivation method research class spend one-third of their time. Actually, many students spend one-third of their time studying the framework of the cultivation system. I also think it's a waste of time. For people like me who like to study cultivation methods, learning this content is indeed very practical. However, for the students of the medical class and other classes, it doesn't have much meaning." Feng Chi immediately agreed with Lin Ran's idea and nodded. I think we should let the students choose on a voluntary basis and not link it to credits, end-of-year evaluation, and graduation evaluation. Lin Ran nodded in agreement. Then he continued, actually, this has already become an almost compulsory learning environment. It seems like it's voluntary learning, but it's linked to various resources. If you don't learn, you won't be able to compete with your classmates for resources in various aspects. That's why everyone has to learn. Actually, many students in Star City University's forum have also discussed this kind of internal exam. Looking at the puzzled Feng Qi, Lin Ran smiled and continued. They have a very vivid metaphor for this phenomenon of the teaching system. They say that there is a sunflower manual in the pugilistic world. Everyone wants to get their hands on it because once they get it, they will be invincible. But if the contents of the sunflower manual were to be made public one day, everyone would have the opportunity to practice it. That would be a disaster. When everyone has the sunflower manual, whether they want to practice it or not is up to them. It's not something they can decide. For example, if you have an enemy, if you don't practice it, your enemy will kill you after he finishes practicing it. That's why you're forced to practice it. In the end, everyone in the pugilistic world will practice the sunflower manual. If you practice the manual, you will be invincible. But because everyone has practiced it, everyone will be invincible. That's why there's no such thing as invincibility. Also, if you want to practice this divine skill, you must first castrate yourself. That's why the pugilistic world will become eunuchs. This is an outcome where everyone loses. No one will benefit from their extra efforts. Similarly, the current cultivation system is based on the public sunflower manual. If you don't learn it, others will be able to obtain better grades and obtain more credits. They might even be able to obtain a scholarship from the academy. They will have a better starting point than you in every aspect. But if you want to learn it, you will have to castrate yourself and waste your precious time. However, if everyone learns it, the benefits won't change. Then, no one will benefit from it. Everyone who participates will lose their time. After listening to Lin Ran's explanation, Feng Qi couldn't help but nod. Then he asked, hasn't the university thought of changing this system? Faced with the question, Lin Ran thought for a moment and replied, Old Bai seems to have mentioned it. However, Star City University's cultivation system is under the management of the Tiger Soul Institute. His application doesn't seem to have been approved. Hearing this, Feng Qi couldn't help but speculate. This might be one of the Tiger Soul Institute's methods to curb the development of mankind. They wanted the freshmen who represented the future of the cultivation system to waste their time on understanding the cultivation system framework that was of limited help to them. At the thought of this, he immediately asked, how can we circumvent the Tiger Soul Institute's rules and change the framework of the cultivation system so that it isn't linked to credits and scholarships? Old Bai can do this. After all, he's the chancellor. He still has the right to not implement the rules set by the Tiger Soul Institute. After all, Star City University's highest authority is the Ministry of Education, not the Tiger Soul Institute. It's just that the Tiger Soul Institute has always been in charge of the cultivation system. Old Bai seems to have already submitted an application to the Ministry of Education, but I don't know when it will be approved. After hearing Lin Ran's answer, Feng Qi nodded. He made up his mind to find out more about this the next time he entered the future dream. A good competitive environment could effectively improve the overall development of human cultivation. However, a bad competitive environment was just like this sunflower manual that Lin Ran mentioned. It was impossible not to cultivate it, but it was also impossible to cultivate it. After forming an inner volume, it wasted everyone's time. If this problem could be effectively solved, it would undoubtedly promote the development of human cultivation from another perspective. After breakfast, Feng Qi and Lin Ran bade farewell to Mu Qing and walked to the school library. It was drizzling outside, and the air was cool. The willow branches along the way swayed with the wind and the rain. The ground was already covered with willow leaves that had fallen from the rain. At this time, the school environment was as warm as jade, just like the poet's words. If one were to ask how much leisure time there was, a river of tobacco, a city full of wind. While chatting with Lin Ran, they arrived at the school library. Feng Qi found a book related to battle group configuration, while Lin Rand took a book on cultivation system research. Sitting in the reading room, they quickly entered a state of study. During this period, Lin Rand would take the initiative to ask him if he encountered any questions. He was full of hope that Lin Rand could anti-parasitize the Lord of Fog, so he answered all of Lin Rand's questions. After reading dozens of basic courses on cultivation system research in the Future database, these basic questions were not difficult to him at all. The explanation he gave made Lin Rand exclaim repeatedly. He felt that his solution was more ingenious than what was described in the book. In the face of Lin Rand's bootlicking praise, he smiled and did not take it to heart. Looking at Lin Rand, who was completely immersed in his studies, a hint of anticipation surfaced in his heart. I hope to be able to walk with you in the future. Even though the future had disappointed him countless times, he was full of fantasies about the future every time he entered the future dream. He felt that he might be able to get an unexpected surprise. At least the future, shrouded in fog, became clearer with each exploration. Everything was developing in a good direction. The future was promising. Thinking of this, a smile appeared on his face. Only with hope in one's heart could one be invincible. A strong mind is true strength. TSK, TSK, TSK. Your optimistic attitude is really like mine. Feng Qi was speechless. Stupid system. Lin Rand, who was reading, looked up with a dumbfounded expression. Then, he said with an aggrieved expression, "Brother Qi, why are you scolding me? I'm not scolding you. Continue reading your book." After saying that, Feng Qi started an intense debate with the narrator in the mental world. The content was centered around the other party, and the other party's relatives were the center of the conversation. At noon, Feng Qi returned to his dormitory and sat in front of his desk. In the following time, he began to plan for the future. The change in the timeline of reality required a change in the direction he had planned for the future. After coming into contact with the Black Shadow assassin, he had clearly become the same kind in the eyes of many domain forces. This made it unrealistic for him to go undercover on the sacrificial line. For example, in the direction he had planned for the future, he had planned to go undercover on the Tiger Soul Institute. Now, if he went undercover on the Tiger Soul Institute as a domain force, it would not be so simple. The domain assassin said that his identity would be kept a secret, and his information would only be spread within the domain alliance he was in. But what if his information was leaked? If the domain force behind the Tiger Soul Institute also knew about his situation and went undercover, the domain force behind the Tiger Soul Institute would probably be dumbfounded. They would not be able to understand his strange behavior and would think that he was sending himself to death. On the day he entered the Tiger Soul Institute, he would probably be treated as a werewolf from a hostile domain force. He might even be brainwashed and have his memories searched. Therefore, the future plan had to take into account the changes in the timeline of reality. The few future plans for undercover investigation on domain forces had to be abandoned. It was completely meaningless. However, the changes in the timeline of reality had also brought him many new lines of exploration. For example, he could use his identity as a domain force to come into contact with other domain forces and obtain useful information. The only risk was that in the future, he would lose his battle constitution and the ability to activate his bloodline. If he was probed, he would easily expose the fact that he was a human. Therefore, if he wanted to come into contact with other domain forces in the future, the best way was to do it secretly. For example, he could do it on the internet and minimize contact in the real world. Otherwise, he would be in danger of being exposed. He was like a husky that had sneaked into a pack of wolves. In terms of raw strength, he did not meet the standards at all. However, the changes in the timeline of reality were not a bad thing from a different perspective. If he did not take the initiative to come into contact with other domain forces, his safety in the future would be relatively guaranteed. The sacrifice of the Undercover Research Institute made him understand one thing. The various domain forces were very cautious. They would not take the initiative to provoke or attack other domain forces that they did not understand. Perhaps the change in information would allow him to live longer. After all, there would be fewer forces that were secretly targeting him. However, he was not completely sure. The various domain forces seemed to be on the same side, but in reality, they were also secretly fighting and had their own plans for the future. Perhaps one of the domain forces had their eyes on him. Apart from that, he felt that dying young was like a curse. There would always be various reasons for him to leave this beautiful world early. It seemed that no matter how he escaped, he could not escape the fate of dying young. As he pondered, his thoughts gradually became clearer. Originally, he had chosen the future timeline to sneak into the Future Research Institute and obtain useful information about it. However, he changed his strategy this time. After all, he was not completely sure that the Future Research Institute had not been infiltrated. After the changes in the timeline of reality, he could no longer go undercover. He felt that he had to come into contact with the Future Research Institute through other means. For example, he could let the Scarlet Institute probe the Future Research Institute, or he could cultivate a trustworthy spy and arrange for him to enter the Future Research Institute to gather information. Now that the werewolf Luping and was no longer around, he could completely relax and probe the Future Research Institute from various angles. Time passed as he pondered. Finally, he made a tick behind the 3 plans in his notebook. 1. Cultivate a trustworthy person among the students to join the Future Research Institute. Square root 3. Work with the Scarlet Institute to probe the Future Research Institute. Square root 5. Try to obtain information about the Future Research Institute through the Black Shadow Assassin. Square root. He decided to investigate the future timeline with these 3 plans as the core direction. There were some changes to the plan. The only thing that did not change was that he would not come into contact with the Future Research Institute or the Tiger Soul Institute in order to prevent sudden information that would cause the clues to be cut off. At the same time, he decided not to read the memories of the sacrifice. The information that was investigated could be obtained through the contents of the email. The after effects of reading memories could not be avoided for the time being. He decided to listen to the narrator's suggestion and not read the memories of the sacrifice unless it was necessary. After making a decision, he went to the sofa and picked up the merit wine on the coffee table. After removing the cork, he gulped down a few mouthfuls and drank another third of the wine. The wine slid down his throat and into his stomach, and his body temperature began to rise. The energy progress bar also began to rise. While waiting, the energy progress bar reached 100%. He immediately laid down on the sofa and closed his eyes, waiting for sleep to come over him. As he closed his eyes and pondered, a lot of information intertwined in his mind. A moment later, sleepiness came over him, and his expression gradually became peaceful. When he opened his eyes, Feng Qi found that he had arrived in the future dream world. This time, there were no changes in the future dream world, and the hazy blood moon that represented the domain world was still hanging high in the sky. Obviously, the history that he had changed in the future timeline did not affect the ending of human civilization. He was already prepared for this outcome, so he was not surprised. Next, he decided to go to the Star City Sanctuary to understand the changes in history in this future timeline. The most important thing was to understand the information related to the Future Research Institute and determine if the Future Research Institute was trustworthy. Roar! At this time, Littlekin struggled to get up from the ground and roared at him in a hoarse voice. Seeing this, Feng Qi immediately took 2 steps forward. However, just as he was about to kick out with his right leg, the narrator's voice sounded in his mind and interrupted him. Don't rush, I want to see you do a split. Chapter 172. After some searching, Feng Qi found the stone tablet at the entrance to the Star City Sanctuary. He followed the metal passage to the data console, wiped off the thick dust on the console, and pressed the red star button. The big screen in front of him lit up, and a list of options appeared. He clicked on the search bar, entered his name, and filtered the search results. After a few seconds, his details appeared on the screen. Feng Qi, hero of the era, age, 25, cause of death, sudden death date of death, May 18, 2030, lifetime achievements, honor S-Class Human Elite Medal, gold medal for outstanding contribution to human development, research results, gymnastics training version 2, 0, Tiger Fist, body tempering technique, Heaven and Earth Meditation, Soul Catcher, creator of the human seed concept. Dragon Catcher, Human Regeneration Technology, Cultivation System version 3. 88 Framework Participant Comment. Feng Qi was a super genius worthy of being recorded in history. His research results made outstanding contributions to human development, but he died suddenly at the age of 25 for unknown reasons. It was a pity for all of humanity. Feng Qi was very confused to see that he had died at the age of 25. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be any danger in this line of sacrifice. Why'd he die so young? Is there something wrong with the Future Research Institute? Did they kill you after you got in touch with them? I'm not sure. Let's check the messages first. Puzzled, he closed the details page and entered his email address. After the private email page popped up, he entered the password and opened the message box. There were 2 boxes in the message box. Apart from him in the future, the other was from Vivian. He first clicked on his message board and began to read the contents of the messages. 1. I lost all my abilities after waking up. Looks like it's my turn this time. Watch me next, grinning. JPG. 3. I went to the Scarlet Institute today and told them everything, as well as my idea of investigating the Future Research Institute. The Scarlet Institute fully supports this. 4. I got a lot of detailed information about the Future Research Institute from the Scarlet Institute's higher-ups. The Future Research Institute was established earlier than the Science and Technology Research Institute. It was the first research institute with the highest level of authority in the future city, so it was named the Future Research Institute, which corresponded to the name of the city. Similar to the Scarlet Institute, this research institute's research direction was relatively complex. They were involved in all kinds of projects, but their core research direction was still science and technology. At the same time, the Future Research Institute was the strongest research institute in the future city. In the early days, the future city's defenses were completely under the control of the Future Research Institute. The first director of the Future Research Institute was the city lord of the future city. The top few domain battle groups of the future city were also under the jurisdiction of the Future Research Institute. This research institute had a very deep foundation. Although their later research results were completely suppressed by the Science and Technology Research Institute, the Future Research Institute was the strongest military force in the future city. After receiving this information, I couldn't help but suspect that perhaps this was the reason why the Science and Technology Research Institute didn't dare to act against the Future Research Institute. However, for the time being, it is impossible to know if the Future Research Institute is on our side. Everything needs to be thoroughly investigated. Wait for my good news, * Omega, star. The Scarlet Institute held a high-level meeting to discuss how to contact the Future Research Institute. The Scarlet Institute and the Future Research Institute had once cooperated on the room modification project, but it was only a superficial exchange of ideas and didn't go deeper. Moreover, the research directions of the 2 research institutes rarely overlapped. Therefore, if the Scarlet Institute wanted to know more about the Future Research Institute, they needed to find a suitable reason. In the end, the final decision was still on the rune modification project. The Scarlet Institute's idea was to find the Future Research Institute to order a batch of research equipment and then start a discussion. The specific plan is still under discussion. Wait for my news. Regarding the reform of the academy system, Elderby had already submitted it to the Ministry of Education. It was almost certain that it would be approved. Even if the Tiger Soul Institute wanted to stop it, it was useless. No matter how long their hands were, they couldn't control the Ministry of Education. From this point of view, it was clear that the Ministry of Education hadn't been infiltrated by the domain powers. However, from the perspective of the domain powers, the benefits of infiltrating the Ministry of Education were limited. Although infiltrating the Ministry of Education could prevent the rapid rise of human civilization, the domain powers obviously cared more about the benefits of their own race. Restricting the development of human civilization was just something they could do along the way. Today, I went to see Lao Wang and talked with Lao Wang through the night. He also made it clear that he would go to the Scarlet Institute and continue to try to solve flesh sacrifice. When I thought about how Lao Wang was going to be busy for the rest of his life, I suddenly felt a bit sad. Vivian, Lao Wang, Mu Qing, Lin Ran, including myself. It seemed like everyone's fate had already been decided. But even so, we were still willing to stubbornly walk down this path. The Scarlet Institute replied that they had already drafted a joint plan with the Future Research Institute. Next, the Scarlet Institute would send a representative to the Future Research Institute to discuss the details of the cooperation. For example, they wanted to know the requirements of the rune modification technology equipment. I really hoped that the Future Research Institute would stand on the side of humanity. But I felt that it would be very difficult to find out the secrets of the Future Research Institute with just a representative. I'd already laid out my cards with Lu Yu and the others. Next, I was going to arrange for Jia Yi to enter the Future Research Institute and start a two-way investigation. As for Lin Ran and Mu Qing, I didn't tell them my secret in order to not affect their future and also to be on the safe side. I hope that in the future, you will be able to see Lin Ran successfully parasitizing the Lord of Mist. That way, you will have more precious time in the future dream, and you will have one more companion. I was personally in charge of teaching Jia Yi. The memories from the previous sacrificial timeline allowed me to grasp a lot of technological knowledge, enough to guide him into the Future Research Institute. At the same time, I didn't neglect the other classes. The Daybreak organization continued to build this timeline, but their goal was no longer to fight against the Future Research Institute and the Tiger Soul Institute. Everything was focused on investigating the Future Research Institute. 34. The reform of the Academy's system was approved. From today onwards, the framework of the cultivation system was abolished. This was undoubtedly a good thing for the development of human civilization, eliminating the meaningless and cumbersome content in exchange for better development. From now on, the students would be able to spend more time on in-depth studies in their field of study. 76. Under my guidance, Jia Yi only took half a year to pass the Future Research Institute's first round of tests. I will spend a lot of time on him and help him enter the Future Research Institute as soon as possible. 83. Lao Wang officially entered the Scarlet Institute today. I also gave him all the deciphering information he left behind in the previous timeline. Fellow companion, Lao Wang, do your best. 123. The Scarlet Institute's representative station in the Future Research Institute sent back a lot of information. However, this information was superficial and couldn't help me determine whether the Future Research Institute was on the side of humanity or not. I felt that the follow-up would depend on Jia Yi's investigation. After all, the Future Research Institute wouldn't expose its secrets in front of the Scarlet representatives. However, from the information I gathered so far, the Future Research Institute was very strong. At least in terms of combat strength, the Future Research Institute, which controlled the future city's garrison army and 5 top-tier combat squadrons, was fully deserving of the title of the strongest faction in the future city. As for whether the Future Research Institute or the Future Research Institute was stronger, I couldn't say for now. However, based on my memory of sacrificing myself to join the Future Research Institute, I felt that the Future Research Institute might be stronger. After all, the squadrons under the Future Research Institute were only the surface strength. The true strength of the Future Research Institute was the domain force behind it. 136. Jia Yi had received a notice from the Future Research Institute and was about to embark on the journey to the future city. At dinner, everyone congratulated him. However, I could see that he was nervous. However, behind the nervousness, I also saw the determination in his eyes. Never feel lonely. You have fellow companions and many other potential companions. Find them and bring them with you. 152. I received a message from Jia Yi today. He told me about his situation when he first entered the Future Research Institute. During this time, he also told me about his troubles. He seemed to feel lonely. As his teacher, of course, I try my best to comfort him. Speaking of loneliness, I suddenly felt like voicing my son. When it was around, I felt that he was very noisy. However, when he completely disappeared, I felt that my heart was empty. Without a silly system that mocked me when I was happy and comforted me when I was sad, I always felt that something was missing in my life. Chapter 204. Jiayi's promotion in the Future Research Institute was swift because I'd taught him many of my research results at the Future Research Institute. During this period of time, he had also gone through a series of identity checks. This process was somewhat similar to the Scarlet Research Institute. I really hope that the Future Research Institute is on our side. 235. Jia had already stepped into the core circle of the Future Research Institute. Through Jiayi's description, I finally understood why the Future Research Institute was so strong. Let me introduce you to the core research direction of the Future Research Institute. If the Future Research Institute's research direction was focused on technological props, then the Future Research Institute's research direction was focused on mechanical warriors. The Future Research Institute had a large number of scientists and technicians. At the same time, they were also the best soldiers. Many of them had undergone technological modifications and modified their bodies to be semi-mechanized. While they were not perfect, they also gained great strength. The advancement of technology also increased the strength of the Future Research Institute's researchers. It could be said that even if the Future Research Institute did not have the support of the 5 top battle squads and the City Defense Army, it was still a top-tier force that could not be underestimated. The investigation was still ongoing. Wait for my news. 240. Jiayi's investigation had reached a bottleneck. Due to the heavy workload, he did not contact me much. Perhaps I need to think of another way to continue investigating the Future Research Institute. 246. Today, I contacted Black Shadow Assassin and asked him about the Future Research Institute. The answer I received was that he was not sure if the Future Research Institute had any other forces behind it. The alliance of forces in the Future Research Institute was originally made up of small clans. He did not know how many forces had infiltrated human society. He also did not know if the Future Research Institute had any other forces behind it. Therefore, I gave him a miracle stone and asked him to help me investigate the Future Research Institute. I hope this guy can be of some use and bring me some useful information. 253. Today I suddenly thought of something. If you want to learn something in the future, you can learn it by sacrificing yourself. For example, knowledge related to game programming. What you need to do is to use the brain in a vat to read that memory. That way, you will also be able to learn this knowledge. As for me, I will not learn it. After all, you did not intend to read my memory in the Future Research Institute. It is also good that you do not want to read it. I hope that you will not be affected by negative emotions. 258. I have decided to train Yang Xiaoxin to be the leader of Breaking Dawn. As for Lu Yu, he should focus on being a fighter. At least Yang Xiaoxin will not be stubborn. In the future, if Breaking Dawn cannot survive, they can join the Scarlet Institute and become a force to be reckoned with. 270. Something happened. I said to keep in touch every day, but I have not been able to contact Black Shadow Assassin for the past few days. Now, I have 2 guesses. He was caught while investigating the Future Research Institute and was killed. Or, he ran away with the Miracle Stone. After analyzing the situation, the Black Shadow Assassin clearly wanted to establish a relationship with me. He mistook me for the representative of a domain family. His first guess was that he disappeared. If he exposed me, then I would be in danger. No matter if the Future Research Institute was on the side of humans or a domain family, I would become the target of their attacks. I was so scared that I hurriedly made arrangements. Who knows when I will be gone? 271. Today, I talked with Lu Yu for a long time. I also tried to ask him about the Heavenly Path. He still did not tell me the details of the Heavenly Path. His answer was still the same. The fact that the Miracle Stone did not find me proved that I did not have the right to know about the Heavenly Path. However, this conversation also gave me a deeper understanding of Lu Yu. He told me that there were 3 types of people in this world. The first type was those who accepted their fate. The second type was those who did not accept their fate. He was the third type, the one who risked his life. Even if he knew that he would not be able to change the future, he would still choose to give it his all. He was very stubborn and inflexible. However, I also saw the stubbornness buried deep in his heart. Perhaps it was because there were people like Lu Yu who did not compromise with fate that I had so many people in the same line as me. We all had the same determination and desire in our hearts. 273. Red Label. I just received news from Jia. I now suspect that the Future Research Institute was secretly working for the Research Institute. That was because the Future Research Institute had received a batch of information and had started their research on psionic technology. I looked at the information that Jia-E had received. It was confirmed that it was the Research Institute's psionic technology. Even the direction of their research and the specific content were the same. If the Future Research Institute had stolen the information from the Research Institute, then it was impossible. It was possible for the Future Research Institute to steal the psionic weapons from the Research Institute. However, if they wanted to steal the most important psionic technology information, they would have to break into the core area of the Research Institute. Based on the information, the Future Research Institute and the Research Institute should be working together. The Research Institute would never hand over important information to human forces. Therefore, I seriously suspect that the Future Research Institute was on the Research Institute side. However, a new problem arose. If the Future Research Institute was on the Research Institute side, why would they help the Scarlet Institute and the Research Institute? This touched on my information blind spot. Let's wait for the results of the follow-up investigation. I've been feeling uneasy recently. I still haven't been able to contact the Black Shadow Assassin. I'm guessing that it's probably gone. I don't know if it was eliminated by the human forces hiding in the dark, or if it was killed while investigating the Future Research Institute. If it's the second guess, I could be eliminated at any time. The message stopped abruptly at this point. Feng Qi couldn't help but frown when he saw this. It was impossible to tell how he had died in this future timeline. However, he guessed that it might have something to do with the Future Research Institute. No way. The Future Research Institute is on the Research Institute side? But it can't be that the Future Research Institute is helping the Scarlet Institute and the Research Institute. This time, they came to the Future Research Institute? I'm not sure. Let's look at Vivian's message. With doubts, he opened Vivian's message box. 1. You still couldn't escape the fate of dying young. Poor little brother Feng Qi, you left this beautiful world at the age of 25. As for the cause of your death, I can't find any information for the time being. This method of death is somewhat similar to the assassination method of the Research Institute. It's a bizarre and sudden death. Next, I'll take over your mailbox and continue to send you messages. 2. The Brain in a Jar project isn't going to start, so the Scarlet Institute will definitely have to carry out other research. As for what the research direction will be, I've already thought about it. From now on, everything will be at your service. From your point of view, I've decided to research a memory implantation technology, or rather, a knowledge implantation technology. If this technology is successful, then you won't need to memorize complicated game codes in the future. You'll only need to read the information I implant in your brain. It's equivalent to your brain, your knowledge USB drive. However, this technology is still in its infancy, and there are still many difficulties to overcome. But I have hundreds of years to overcome them, so I don't think it'll be a problem. After all, other than being beautiful, my only advantage is that I'm smart. 9. I'm thinking about what kind of ability blind box I'll leave for you this time. But after thinking about it, I don't want to leave it for you. In the previous line, you said that you didn't get the ability blind box, which means that the resources in the secret base can only support your brain. After all, once the Research Institute moves into the secret base, the resources will definitely be limited. I plan to leave these resources for research purposes. After all, I can't think of what kind of ability blind box I'll leave for you right now. 11. As for the Future Research Institute, here's a more detailed introduction. First, let me introduce the current director of the Future Research Institute. He used to be a domain warrior. Later, he was seriously injured in an operation to disperse a domain and could no longer go to the front lines, so he retired. But he didn't give up. Instead, he changed his direction and continued to study hard. He joined the Future Research Institute and finally became the director of the Future Research Institute. Here's a photo of him, Li Xingqian, JPG. But as far as I know, although Li Xingqian is reliable, he's very unscrupulous. Eating, drinking, whoring, gambling, there's nothing he doesn't do. His private life is very messy. Therefore, from this perspective, he seemed to be a person who is easily bewitched by hostile forces. Now that we've contacted Jia-E, let's wait for the follow-up investigation. Feng Qi clicked on the photo attachment in the email. In the photo, the director of the Future Research Institute, Li Xingqin, was sitting in a wheelchair. He was bald, and his naked upper body was full of scars. His face was full of hostility, and he looked very fierce. Then he continued to look at the contents of the email. 13. Jia, he recently contacted us. He told me that he found a special medicine that was being mass-produced in the Future Research Institute. This medicine is very poisonous. Once injected into the bloodstream, it will quickly drain the person's mental power and cause them to die. So he couldn't tell the cause of death. Also, this highly poisonous medicine is very volatile and doesn't leave any residue. This made me think of your strange death. From this perspective, it seems that the Future Research Institute is also carrying out assassinations of human geniuses like the Future Research Institute. They are indeed on the Future Research Institute side, but still the same problem. I can't explain why the Future Research Institute would one day confront the Future Research Institute for our Scarlet Institute. What a headache. The investigation has reached a bottleneck. But from the current information, you have to be careful of the Future Research Institute. They don't seem to be good people. 78. The Breaking Dawn organization you established has recently been recruiting in Star City University and expanding their influence. They've also secretly investigated the Future Research Institute and contacted us. Let's hope that their actions won't alert the enemy. Otherwise, Breaking Dawn might be wiped out. 113. Today, when I was carrying out the Mu Qin clone project, an idea suddenly popped up in my mind. In the future timeline, you lost your innate ability, causing your strength to be very weak. Can I modify your runes to help you increase your strength? The rune modification technology is already very mature. After the modification, you can even use the changes in the timeline to infiltrate a domain force to gather information. After all, the rune modification project is for reverse osmosis. It can make you very similar to a domain creature. I'm already looking at the detailed data of your body to create a rune modification plan for you. When the time comes, you can bring this information back to reality and give it to me the next time you enter the future dream. This way, every time the future timeline opens, you can first come to the Future Research Institute to modify your runes. But there are also drawbacks to using the rune modification plan to increase your strength. The only one who was almost perfectly modified was Mu Qin. Even she had times when she lost control of her emotions. It was just that this kind of loss of control gradually decreased as she grew older, so it wasn't a big problem. But if it's you, it won't necessarily be the same. As for whether you're willing to do it or not, it's up to you. If you want to open the future timeline, I think it's worth a try. At the same time, high risk also meant high reward. It's just that the process might be a little painful. Chapter 140. Jia Yi sent back a new report. The Future Research Institute's psionic technology was successful. Even with the information, it took them such a short time to complete it. It wasn't hard to suspect that the Future Research Institute was behind this. From the current information, the Future Research Institute was becoming more and more suspicious. Also, from the external investigation, many retired domain warriors were recruited into the Future Research Institute. It was suspected that the retired domain warriors were mechanized. That was why they could appear as warriors in the Future Research Institute's domain forces. If the Future Research Institute sided with the domain forces, it would definitely be a headache. The Future Research Institute's foundation in the future city was too strong. Even the city's defense was under the Future Research Institute's jurisdiction. If the Future Research Institute was infiltrated, it would mean that the entire future city was infiltrated. I hope the result isn't what I think. But one thing I can be sure of is that the current president of the Future Research Institute, Li Xingqin, isn't a good person. Other than his inspirational experience, his character is really bad. He's also very indulgent of his subordinates. My head hurts for 3 seconds. 176. The historical event happened as you predicted. Today, the base outside Twilight City was attacked by an unknown force. Obviously, it was the Future Research Institute. We were already prepared for this. We have already destroyed all the important information. But the Future Research Institute's plan to sabotage us is about to begin. Today, we had a high-level meeting. We decided to move to the secret base. 189. Little brother Feng Chi, I'll see you in the secret base. Time will be better because of your generosity. Keep it up. After reading the messages, Feng Chi fell into deep thought. Through these messages, the Future Research Institute's position became even more uncertain. The information was full of contradictions. But from Vivian's message, he also obtained a lot of important information. For example, the knowledge implantation technology, the rune modification for the future him, and the future timeline for contact with the domain forces. The results and direction provided by the Scarlet Institute could be used as a reference for his next choice, especially the knowledge implantation technology. If this technology was realized, even if he didn't have unlimited memory, he could still bring the code of the virtual reality game back to reality. But right now, he still had a lot of questions in his mind. Other than the Future Research Institute, whether Lao Wang and Lin Ran succeeded or not was still unknown. Lin Ran would definitely be the last to test. As for whether Lao Wang was successful in solving flesh sacrifice, it would depend on the information left in the Scarlet Secret Base. Thinking of this, Feng Chi didn't want to continue reading the knowledge. He decided to go to the Scarlet Secret Base first. Chapter 173. Bathed in the blood-red light, Feng Chi walked alone in the wilderness that was filled with corpses. Through the dark clouds in the sky, he could vaguely see a gigantic figure that covered the sky. Looking up at the sky, he was horrified. This was the first time he saw such a gigantic beast in the future dream. From the silhouette of its body, this beast was several times larger than the sky behemoth he encountered before. Thinking of this, he asked curiously, "Narrator, do you think this thing can defeat Xiao He?" The life force in this domain creature is indeed very strong, but still far from Xiao He. If Xiao He can't even defeat a domain creature like this, he might as well find a factory to turn a screw. Feng Chi was speechless. I wish it would turn a screw and not come looking for me. It might not know how to turn a screw, but it's very good at breaking your neck. While he couldn't help but roll his eyes, Feng Chi continued to head east. A moment later, he left the burial ground and came to the ruined city. Following the route in his memory, he quickly passed through the ruined buildings and went straight to the abandoned hospital where the sucker was. On the way, he encountered the fire elemental life form again. Even though his strength was no longer what it used to be, and he had the support of the blood source ability, he still wasn't confident that he could win against the fire elemental life form. So he decisively chose to take a detour. A few hours later, his figure appeared outside the abandoned hospital. Entering the abandoned hospital, he began to search for the sucker according to the narrator's instructions. Going up the stairs to the second floor, he saw the little sucker squatting on the ground by the walkway. Her lifeless face made his heart ache. The sucker also turned to look at him at this time. When their eyes met, starlight appeared in her eyes, and she suddenly pounced on Feng Chi. After reaching out to take the sucker, Feng Chi subconsciously rubbed her little head, and a smile appeared on his face. "I brought you something delicious. Eat it." As he spoke, he put a spirit plant in his hand to the sucker's mouth. Seeing this, the sucker immediately opened her mouth and chewed the spirit plant in his hand and swallowed it in a few bites. Next, Feng Chi brought the suckers back to the first floor of the abandoned hospital. Under the instructions of the narrator, he lifted the floorboards and found the hidden door of the Scarlet Institute's secret base. After transforming into a human body, he dripped a drop of blood into it. Vivian's voice immediately sounded. "Please tell me the password to enter the secret base." Hint, the password is, "Vivian is a real beauty." Feng Chi was speechless. Realizing that this was a special entry method that Vivian had set up for him, he felt ashamed. "Vivian is such a beauty." As soon as he finished speaking, the color of the light on the door changed. The metal door slowly moved to the right, revealing a passage that led downwards. Carrying the suction cup, he immediately stepped into the passage. Just as he thought, the secret door closed automatically after he entered. It was obviously impossible for this line of defense to stop Xiao He from entering. The Scarlet Institute had set this up to buy him as much time as possible, even if it was very short. When he reached the end of the plaza, he pressed the elevator button. After checking his identity, he stepped into the elevator. The feeling of weightlessness disappeared in an instant. When the elevator door opened again, what appeared in front of him was a neat row of scientific research instruments, as well as a control panel and two large screens in the center. He walked to the control panel and skillfully pressed the start button. After waiting for a few seconds, the two screens in front of him lit up with a list of options. He clicked on the must-see Feng Qi pinned at the top and began to read the information left for him by the Scarlet Institute. At the top of the list was the message box that Vivian left for him. He opened the message box and began to read the messages left by Vivian. 1. After moving to the Scarlet secret base, the hard days have officially begun. Although the base already has a complete internal circulation system, the materials needed for scientific research still have to be obtained from the outside. Life is tight, and even the food is greatly reduced. It's too hard. I missed the days on the surface as soon as I moved here. 2. Recently, I lost contact with Jia. There's no other way. The secret base doesn't have a network that connects to the outside world. We plan to let the foreign soldiers contact Jia irregularly to obtain information. We will continue to investigate the Future Research Institute. The mission for me and my colleagues is to solve the knowledge implantation technology and help you complete the virtual game. Actually, I'm also looking forward to the super virtual game. If everything in the game can perfectly simulate reality, we can also maximize the efficiency of resources. After all, everything can be simulated in the game, reducing a lot of unnecessary waste. I'm looking forward to this day. 6. News from the Second Squadron. The public is now condemning the Scarlet Institute. They think that our disappearance is because we escaped punishment. This proves that we are a domain force. So angry. If it wasn't for the fact that I can't go online, I would definitely argue with them. 13. I was busy until late at night to message you. I'm physically and mentally exhausted. The knowledge implantation technology is really difficult. At least we haven't even touched the threshold yet. Continue to work hard. Also, I have good news for you. According to the latest information, the Breaking Dawn organization has been developing very well. One of their domain battle groups has reached the evaluation of a B-rank battle group, but the overall strength of the members has reached A rank. After all, Lu Yu is there. Lu Yu, apart from having a temper like a stubborn donkey, his battle strength is at the top of the top battle groups. At the same time, Yang Xiaoxin contacted our soldiers outside. She told us that the Breaking Dawn organization is still investigating the Future Research Institute. Once they have any news, they will contact me. 38. The knowledge implantation technology has made some progress, but it's still far from being a beginner. However, I've already drafted 2 modification plans for you in the rune modification plan that I proposed earlier. I'll explain them to you in detail. For the first modification, I've chosen the demonic dragon, rune crystal. This is an extremely powerful domain creature. The Scarlet Institute only has 1 rune crystal in stock. It can give you unparalleled physical fitness, which is more in line with the route of a muscular man described by the narrator. However, this rune modification route requires you to train your body for a long time and regularly inject the gene modification fluid to strengthen your body. Otherwise, you won't be able to withstand the corrosion of the demonic dragon rune crystal's power. For the second modification, I've chosen the Ominous Shadow rune crystal. The Ominous Shadow is a special rune creature that excels in stealth and camouflage. It's not as strong as the demonic dragon, but it's suitable for all kinds of hidden missions. I think it fits you well in the future. However, the Ominous Shadow rune crystal has more than half of its spiritual power. Therefore, the modification is more difficult than the demonic dragon. Apart from having a strong physical fitness, you also need a strong willpower. However, I think you'll have no problems. I won't comment on your talent, but I give you full marks for willpower. I'll let you decide what to do. I'll first sort out the details of the 2 modification plans. When the time comes, remember to bring them back to reality. 73. Today, I received some bad news. The Breaking Dawn organization is in trouble. Recently, they've been undergoing a series of investigations. Obviously, there's a problem with their decision-making, causing them to touch on some taboos. It's also possible that they're the same as you. Because of their secret investigations, they've attracted the attention of the domain powers. Their situation is very bad. I've decided to let the soldiers outside contact Yang Xiaoxin and let her lead the Breaking Dawn organization into the Scarlet Base. But before that, to be safe, I must conduct an in-depth investigation on the members of the Breaking Dawn organization. If the werewolves infiltrate the Scarlet Base, then all our previous efforts will be in vain. I can trust your students, but the people they trust may not be trustworthy. Maybe there are werewolves around them. 113. Today, Yang Xiaoxin brought some members of the Breaking Dawn organization to the Scarlet Base. To be safe, she disbanded the Breaking Dawn organization and only brought the core members. This way, there's no risk of them being infiltrated. This was undoubtedly the right choice. At this time, if she was still indecisive, it would inevitably lead the Breaking Dawn organization and the people around her to eternal damnation. It was better to cut the Gordian knot and disband the organization. The only regret was that Lu Yu didn't come with her. This stubborn donkey was just as you described. He didn't want to stay in the base and chose to leave alone. Sigh. I don't know if I should say he's stupid or praise him for his courage. Today, a high-level meeting was held. Yang Xiaoxin and the others were incorporated into the newly established team. Yang Xiaoxin continued to be the leader and carry out external missions. 132. Red Label. Today, Jai got in touch with the soldiers outside and sent back an important message. Because he lost contact with you, he can no longer create value in the Research Institute. Recently, he was assigned to the position of inspection and management of the resource warehouse. But he also confirmed one thing. The Research Institute of the Future was indeed cooperating with the Research Institute of the Future. There are 4 resource warehouses in the future city. These warehouses belong to the Research Institute of the Future, but they are all managed by the Research Institute of the Future. The Research Institute of the Future would often send their own resources to these 4 warehouses. This is equivalent to helping the Research Institute of the Future. But that question still doesn't explain why the Research Institute of the Future would stand on the side of the Scarlet Institute during the transportation of resources. They even didn't hesitate to confront the Research Institute of the Future. But Jai's message is very useful. Even if it's not clear whether the Research Institute of the Future is on the side of humans or the domain creatures, at least we know the coordinates of the 4 secret warehouses that are very important to the Research Institute of the Future. I'll send you the coordinates now, coordinates attached. If you want to investigate the secrets of the Research Institute of the Future and the Research Institute of the Future, perhaps you can start from these 4 core warehouses. If you choose to fight against the Research Institute of the Future, then you have to destroy these warehouses first. They had to destroy the 4 warehouses first, which would definitely be a huge blow to the Research Institute. After all, for a research institute, resources are the core. Without resources, no matter how many ideas you have in your mind, they are all empty talk. Without resources, the Research Institute of the Future will completely hit a bottleneck. Recently, Jia has been in contact with us less and less. Without an important position, he can no longer bring useful information. Today, I saw a recent photo of Jia taken by the captain of the 3rd Division. In the photo, his hair was already white. Time waits for no man. After a quick calculation, he is already 68 years old. So I contacted the captain of the 3rd Division and asked him to tell Jia that he can stop. He doesn't need to continue investigating. He's already 68 years old, but he's still alone. He's still carrying out the mission you gave him. I think he's working too hard. It's time for him to take a long vacation. The rest of the road will be continued by us young people. And it's time for him to enjoy his old age. 3:38. This morning, our soldier, Yang Xiaoxin, left. Our first meeting was like yesterday. I still remember clearly the moment she hugged my hand, called me Sister Vivian, and asked me how to stay young forever. Maybe one day, I will also welcome such a day. After all, you said that my life is limited. Little brother Feng Qi, it's so hard. Please don't tell me such a cruel truth next time. For 23, the Knowledge Implantation Plan has finally made progress. We have created an information storage liquid. When the time comes, we will inject this liquid into your brain. But the memory liquid still has many flaws. Now we are perfecting these flaws. We guarantee that you will succeed in one try. For 87, the memory implantation plan has basically come to an end. Now the success rate of the memory liquid has reached 90%. To be on the safe side, we have decided to continue perfecting it to ensure that it will succeed in one try. For this 10%, the entire Scarlet Institute will continue to work hard for several more years, or even more than 10 years. Do your best. The future is bright. 523. I'm not in a good mood. I used to be able to pull all-nighters for several days, but recently I've been sleepy every day. It's like my body has become rusty. It's not as good as before. Today I was in a meeting. From time to time, my mind would wander. It seems that this beauty's time is coming to an end. Thinking of this, after the meeting, I injected myself with 3 gene injections. Damn, I'm instantly energized. But the gene injection's effect on me is not obvious. I won't be able to last much longer. But before the memory implantation plan ends, this beauty will not fall. My life is in my own hands. Gene injections. What bullsh** T side effects? They're all fleeting clouds in my eyes. 586. The knowledge implantation plan has officially ended. The success rate of the memory liquid is close to 99%. I have already stored the information about this technology in the database. Feng Qi must see. You can look for it yourself when the time comes. You have 3 days off. Take a good rest. 594. I have stepped down. From now on, I will no longer manage anything in the Scarlet Institute. Recently, I often sit there for the whole day. My mind is filled with the past. The longer I live, the more memories overlap. The brain will compress the same memories, making it seem like time is speeding up. Perhaps this is why the old man sits in the courtyard for the whole day. At this moment, I am experiencing that feeling. What I see when I close my eyes are memories. The memories are like a long movie, slowly playing. Sigh, I have no choice but to admit that I am old. 603. My disciple said that I have taken too many gene injections and have a bit of Alzheimer's. I think he used the wrong word. This is called beauty dementia. What does it have to do with old age? Am I old? I will always be young. 624. Little brother Feng Qi, this is the last message from your beautiful and intelligent sister Vivian. Next, I will leave the base and see the outside world. As for why I want to see the outside world, of course, it is because I want to have a good meal before I die. Do you know how painful it is to have nutrition cream every day? This is simply a foodie's hell. I have endured for so many years. I should at least enjoy it before I die. Thinking about the delicious food that is about to taste, my mouth is about to drool. I am free. As for you, continue to work hard. The information is in the database for you. I will see you in the next timeline. P.S. I received news from the editor today that the comic's copyright has been sold. Actually, I'm also very surprised. The comic's copyright has only been sold for 500,000 words. As for when the comic will be published, I am not sure. Everyone can look forward to it. Today is the first update, more than 4,000 words. I will update as soon as possible. The explosive update is already brewing. Everyone can guess the future direction of the Research Institute. There will definitely be a surprise. Chapter 174. After closing the message box, Feng Qi sighed in his heart. With this group of companions from the Scarlet Research Institute, his future path would indeed be much easier. There were many problems that needed to be solved. The Scarlet Research Institute would give him advice and even solve the problems for him. From the initial investigation to the talent blind box, to the brain in a vat technology, and now the knowledge implantation technology. Feng Qi was truly grateful to this group of companions who had silently contributed. In the following time, he began to read the information given to him by the Scarlet Institute, especially information related to the knowledge implantation technology. With this technology, even if he didn't have the infinite memory talent, he could bring the code of the virtual reality game back to reality through memory implantation. Other than that, there was also information on the rune modification plan that Vivian gave him, as well as information on Lao Wang's second version of flesh sacrifice. This important information was his biggest gain in the future dream, and he needed to bring it back to reality. While memorizing the information, he quickly entered a state of immersion. He only realized that Xiao He was about to arrive when the voiceover reminded him. Without hesitation, he immediately took the suction cup back to the first floor of the underground shelter. As the voice shouted, "Next time," he threw the suction cup to Xiao He. Then, he decisively returned to the second floor and continued to read the information given to him by the Scarlet Institute. Time quickly passed. During the memorization process, Feng Qi found that the Scarlet Institute simplified the information in order to make it easier for him to memorize the content. In addition to many core contents, sometimes long theoretical elaborations were only displayed with a single line of words. For example, Advanced Gene Fluid 3.0 book, page 266. At the same time, the typography was also improved. During the process of reading the information, there was no visual fatigue caused by the dense text. However, compared to the previous timeline, the amount of information provided by the Scarlet Institute this time was still too much. When Feng Qi finished reading the first time, he realized that there wasn't enough time for him to return to the Star City Sanctuary. Originally, he wanted to find out if Lin Ran had successfully counter-parasitized the Lord of Mist. However, in terms of time, he did not have much time left, so he might as well use the remaining time to consolidate his memories. Therefore, he calmed down and continued to look through the database. After entering the immersive learning state, the concept of time became blurry. If it wasn't for the voice, he wouldn't have noticed that Xiao He had broken through the metal door outside the elevator and arrived at the second floor of the underground shelter. When he turned around, he saw the elevator that was riddled with holes. Xiao He, who had turned into a mist, was heading straight for him. In response, Feng Qi quickly switched to his constitution form. First form of the ferocious tiger fist, Black Tiger steals heart. Aji's first style, Executioner, live beheading. Aji's second style, Sacrificial Sucker, definitely next time. Aji's third style, Unyielding Chicken, Dying Flutter, looking forward to your fourth style as soon as possible. Feng Qi was speechless. While he gave the middle finger to the voice in his mind, his body came into contact with the black mist. In an instant, his vision was shrouded by darkness. When Feng Qi opened his eyes again, he found himself back in reality. He sat up from the sofa, went to his desk, and recorded the information obtained from this future timeline. This future timeline had a lot of information, but the intelligence was limited. He didn't find any valuable information related to the Future Research Institute. After he recorded the information in his notebook, he began to think about the direction of the next future timeline. With more and more information, there were more future timelines for him to choose from. But one thing was for sure. No matter what choice he made, improving his strength was definitely not the best choice. Having more strength could indeed solve many problems, but it couldn't solve all problems. If he had chosen to focus on improving his strength instead of collecting information, he wouldn't have known that there were a large number of domain forces lurking in human civilization. Even if he had the strength to defeat all the domain forces, when the Lord of Mist activated the bloodline switch, he would be the loneliest human in the world. By then, all the enemies would be destroyed, but he wouldn't win. Other than that, there was another very important reason. He didn't have any talent abilities in the future timeline. So no matter how strong he became in the future dream, he was still weak in the future timeline and couldn't detect how strong the enemy was. So he could only guess the strength of the enemy in the real timeline and then judge how strong he had to become to defeat the enemy. But he had to face the final battle personally in the real timeline. So he only had one chance to become stronger mindlessly. When the final battle came 1,500 years later, when he felt that he had the strength to defeat the domain forces, if there was a domain force stronger than him, he wouldn't have a chance to turn the tables. So he could see the end of the path of becoming stronger mindlessly at a glance. The risk was great, and the reward was minimal. In Feng Qi's opinion, the best choice was to lead human civilization to develop steadily, and improving his strength as a secondary support. He could also use history as a mirror to judge the strength of the enemy and find a way to deal with it. In these future timelines, the help of the Scarlet Institute proved that he made the right choice. On the path of salvation, he needed companions, not a lone wolf. As for the choice of the next future timeline, Feng Qi made a decision. He still chose to investigate the Future Research Institute. But this time, he planned to use a more radical method to investigate the Future Research Institute and fight against the Science and Technology Research Institute. The coordinates of the 4 resource warehouses provided by Jia Yi were the targets of this future timeline. At the same time, fighting against the Science and Technology Research Institute could also change the future dream world. By then, he would be able to come into contact with people from the future, learn more useful information, and even obtain access to the Star City Sanctuary. Do you plan to start the Brain in a Vat project in this future timeline? Faced with the question from the narrator, Feng Qi was silent for a while before he spoke. I'm curious about why the Science and Technology Research Institute can change the future, so I plan to start the Brain in a Vat project in this future timeline and witness it with my own eyes. Then, I wish you good luck. I can't accompany you in the sacrifice timeline. After making the decision, Feng Qi stood up and sat down on the sofa. He picked up the remaining 1/3 of the merit wine, unscrewed the cork, and drank it in one gulp. As his body temperature gradually rose, he laid down on the sofa. While waiting, the energy progress bar reached the requirement to enter the future dream world, and drowsiness overwhelmed him. His expression gradually became peaceful as he closed his eyes and thought. The phone rang and woke Feng Qi up from his sleep. He sat up and felt his head was heavy. He reached out and picked up the phone on the coffee table. It was a call from Lin Ran. After he answered the call, Lin Ran's voice came through. "Brother Qi, it's time." When he heard Lin Ran's voice, he suddenly woke up. After falling asleep, he didn't enter the future dream world. Now, there were 2 possibilities in front of him. First, he became a sacrifice timeline. Second, he was reading the memories in his brain in the future dream world. After explaining to Lin Ran that he was busy, he hung up the phone. Sitting on the sofa, he fell into deep thought. In fact, no matter which possibility it was the same for him. What he had to do was to move forward according to the planned route as much as possible, to create more valuable information. He was already prepared, so he quickly accepted the current situation. He sat down at the desk and started to plan the future in more detail. Since this future timeline chose to investigate the Future Research Institute in a radical way and fight against the Technology Research Institute, it was very important for him to become a sacrifice timeline. Therefore, he decided to go to the Scarlet Institute as soon as possible and modify his runes to become stronger. At the same time, the formation of the Daybreak Army couldn't be neglected. This time, he would personally lead the Daybreak Army to rise and become an important force against the Technology Research Institute in the future. At 1 a.m., Feng Qi put down his pen and closed his notebook. After losing his talent ability, he didn't have enough energy and was already feeling sleepy. After washing up, he lay on the bed and quickly fell asleep. The next morning, he woke up and went to the desk. He opened his contact list and found Vivian with the orange cat profile picture. He sent her a message. "Feng Qi, Beauty Vivian, are you there?" After sending the message, he got up to brush his teeth and wash his face before returning to his seat. At this time, Wei Wei had already replied. "Vivian, Feng Qi classmate, you've thought it through and want to do something big at the Scarlet Institute." "Feng Qi, yes, I want to do something big. I want to come to the Scarlet Institute now. I have a very good idea to discuss with you." Vivian, "Oh, how does this concept compare to the human seed god concept?" "Feng Qi, it's 100 times better. Are you free now?" "Vivian, I'm free. I'll send someone to Star City University to pick you up." When he saw that Vivian was going to send someone to pick him up, he smiled. Naturally, he didn't have a better idea than the human seed god concept. Everything was for the sake of smoothly entering the Scarlet Institute. He said a lot about the sacrificial line before, but Vivian didn't believe him. It was better to use this method to get himself into the Scarlet Institute first. Then he could have a showdown with Vivian and the other higher-ups of the Scarlet Institute. After closing the chat app, he stood up and left the dorm. He walked towards the school gate. When he arrived at the gate, he greeted the security guard and walked out. While waiting for the car to arrive, he took out his phone and called by Fuxing to report his whereabouts. A moment later, a military maglev car stopped in front of him. After confirming Feng Qi's identity, the car door slowly opened and he stepped in. His next destination was the Scarlet Institute. The maglev car quickly shuttled through the air. A few hours later, it landed inside the walls of the Scarlet base. As soon as he got out of the car, he saw Vivian not far away. She was wearing a scarlet uniform and holding a bag of soup dumplings. Feng Qi, didn't you say a few days ago that you didn't want to come to the Scarlet Institute? Why are you interested today? Looking at Vivian's teasing eyes, Feng Qi smiled faintly. Today is different from the past. The situation has changed significantly. Let's find a place to talk. Okay, I'm curious about your idea. Follow me to the base. She turned around and walked into the base. Feng Qi saw this and immediately followed. A moment later, in the Scarlet Institute's reception room, Vivian looked at Feng Qi, who was eating his soup dumplings with a shocked expression. So, you're tricking me? When she heard Feng Qi say that he didn't have any idea, Vivian only had one thought in her mind. This guy is really stubborn. He dares to trick me? The Scarlet Institute is not a place to joke around. Just as Vivian's expression changed and she was about to speak, Feng Qi swallowed the soup dumpling in his mouth and continued. Sister Vivian, what I'm about to say is very important. You better be mentally prepared. I hope you can say something that satisfies me. Otherwise, you might have to pay a price. After all, the Scarlet Institute also cares about its reputation. We can't be fooled and not react, right? Looking at Vivian's smiling face, Feng Qi couldn't help but be curious. What's the price? Castration surgery. It's not a big problem. I don't want to be in a relationship with this sacrifice line. What's the use of it? If I get rid of the root of my worries, my heart will become more determined. Feng Qi smiled faintly. Vivian, she wanted to scare Feng Qi, but Feng Qi's answer caught her off guard. Looking at the serious Feng Qi, she couldn't help but ask, what do you mean by sacrifice line? That's what I'm about to tell you. You should be mentally prepared. Then, he began to tell Vivian about his ability to travel through time, as well as the information he obtained from other timelines. Time quickly passed by. Listening to Feng Qi's explanation, Vivian's expression gradually became serious. From initial disbelief to believing, Vivian even felt like she was dreaming. There was too much information. After Feng Qi finished, she took a long time to recover from the shock. If you didn't tell me all our secrets, I would have thought that you were lying to me. But now, I believe that what you said is true. Vivian couldn't help but sigh. Then, she continued. So, what's the future plan for this timeline? Continue to investigate the Future Research Institute and fight against the Science and Technology Research Institute. Therefore, I need powerful strength for this sacrifice line. I need you to modify the runes here. As for the modification plan, you've already sorted out the previous timeline. I'll hand it over to you directly. Hearing this, Vivian immediately nodded. Wait here for a moment. I'll go to the dean for a high-level meeting. You'll also attend and repeat what you told me in the meeting. Okay. Feng Qi immediately agreed. After waiting for about half an hour, Vivian appeared again and led him out of the reception room. After a physical examination, he changed into a new set of clothes and stepped into the scarlet-red high-level meeting room. After explaining the situation in detail at the meeting, although the higher-ups of the Scarlet Research Institute were shocked, they still accepted what Feng Qi said in the face of the facts. In the end, the Scarlet-Red Dean and the higher-ups decided to fully cooperate with his follow-up plan. Although he knew that the result would definitely be as he wished, he still felt warmth in his heart when he saw the attitude of the Scarlet-Red higher-ups. After the meeting, he followed Vivian to the Gene Department's laboratory. Next, he told Wei Wei about the rune modification plan he obtained from the previous timeline and had her record it down. After a few hours of busy work, Vivian, who had finished recording the information, raised her head and looked at him with a smile. So, between the demonic dragon and ominous shadow, which direction did you choose for the rune modification? Chapter 175. Facing Vivian's question, Feng Qi already had an answer in his heart. He could only choose one of the two types of rune modification. The demonic dragon was a modification that purely enhanced his physical strength, while the savage shadow strengthened his physique and gave him the ability to hide and move stealthily. Even though he was more inclined towards the demonic dragon that suited his fighting style, after comprehensive consideration, he still felt that the savage shadow with the ability to move stealthily was more suitable for the sacrifice line. For this sacrifice line, apart from fighting against the Science and Technology Research Institute, he also needed to investigate the Future Research Institute. Functional abilities were more important. Sister Vivian, I choose the savage shadow. Hearing his answer, Vivian smiled and nodded. Since you don't have any innate abilities, you obviously have to prioritize self-preservation and do your best to investigate. As for fighting against the Science and Technology Research Institute, Liu Yu and the others are the main force. I also feel that the savage shadow is more suitable for your needs than the demonic dragon. When will the modification start? Facing the question, Vivian didn't answer. She reached out and pressed a few buttons on the machine in front of her. Suddenly, the machine at the side spat out a form. After taking the form, she placed it in front of Feng Qi. Later, you'll follow me to the gene lab to inject the gene fluid. Then, you will start adaptive training according to the schedule. After a month, your body's data will be tested. Only when your physical strength meets the requirements can we start the modification. Is it very troublesome? Feng Qi asked curiously. It's very troublesome. Although the information you gave me is based on your body's data, there's still a difference between practice and theory. Even if your body meets the requirements, there's still a period of adaptation observation after the formal modification. Your life could be in danger at any time. Therefore, it's best for you to take a 3-month-long leave and stay here with us. This way, if you have an emergency, we can deal with it in time. After listening to Vivian's explanation, Feng Qi pondered for a moment before nodding. I'll listen to you. I'll go back after the rune modification is completed. Vivian immediately nodded. By the way, the rune modification process will be very painful. You'd better be mentally prepared. Hearing this, Feng Qi suddenly recalled the pain he suffered during the biochemical modification on the sacrifice line. Then he smiled faintly. As long as the modification effect is good, pain is fine. Then follow me. Next, we'll start the gene injection. Feng Qi nodded and followed Vivian to another laboratory in the gene department. While Vivian was preparing the gene fluid, he took out his phone and called Bai Fuxing. After waiting for a while, the call went through. Bai Fuxing's slightly puzzled voice came through. Agi, aren't you at the Scarlet Institute? What is it? Grandmaster, I would like to apply for leave. No problem, a few days. Bai Fuxing immediately agreed. 3 months, Feng Qi said, and pulled the phone away. Just as he had expected, Bai Fuxing's roar followed. 3 months? Why don't you apply for 3 years? Do you think the school is owned by your family? You can stay as long as you want. Why don't I let you be the principal? After a series of roars, Bai Fuxing's angry voice came through. Give me a reason to agree to your request. Otherwise, I won't approve your leave. Faced with Bai Fuxing's questioning, he felt helpless. At this time, he obviously couldn't say that he wanted to perform rune modification. Otherwise, he had no doubt that Bai Fuxing would come to the Scarlet Institute from Star City University. Therefore, he had to give Bai Fuxing a satisfactory reason. Thinking of this, he said in a relaxed tone, Grandmaster, here's the thing. I'm working with the Scarlet Institute to improve the concept of the human spirit. I feel that there will be new results. Maybe I can rely on the results of this research to get the Human Contribution Gold Medal. Realizing that he was doing business, Bai Fuxing was suddenly speechless. After a moment of silence, he replied, I'll approve your leave. If you have any difficulties, feel free to contact me. Get the gold medal as soon as possible and make me proud. No problem. After hanging up the phone, he called Lin Ran and Mu Qing. He told them that he was researching something new and wouldn't be returning to the school. He sat in a laboratory and began to wait for Vivian to come back. After a few hours of waiting, Vivian came back with the gene fluid that was modified according to his body data. Next was the gene injection. Similar to the memory of the sacrifice line last time, he felt a strong sense of sleepiness after injecting the gene fluid. In less than a minute, he closed his eyes and fell into a deep sleep. His body was also undergoing changes under the enhancement of the gene fluid, After the gene modification was completed, he stayed at the Scarlet Institute for the next few days. During this period, he strictly followed the requirements of the training schedule every day and did high-intensity physical adaptation exercises in the training room of the Scarlet Base. He no longer ate as he pleased and strictly followed the diet set by Vivian. All of this was to improve his physical fitness so that he could withstand the rune modification. Half a month passed in the blink of an eye. On this day in the gym, Feng-Chi was sweating profusely. Under the gene fluid and high-intensity training, his body had undergone significant changes. The muscles on his naked upper body were clearly defined, and his body became more symmetrical and beautiful. Beep, beep, beep. Physical strength training completed. Next is body recovery conditioning. At this time, an electronic synthesized voice came from the broadcast. Hearing the prompt, he immediately put down the strength training equipment and endured the soreness in his body as he walked to the corner of the training room. He walked up to the nutrition chamber placed in the corner and pressed the switch on the device. Suddenly, the glass door opened and he walked in. He skillfully connected the tube in the nutrition chamber to his body. After he put the respirator in his mouth, an electronic projection appeared on the glass in front of him. A green light swept through and began to check his body condition. Examination completed. Your body is in a state of extreme fatigue. Beginning recovery and conditioning. As the electronic synthesized voice sounded, blue liquid appeared at the bottom of the nutrition chamber. The water level continued to rise, and soon, the nutrition chamber was filled. Floating in the nutrition chamber, Feng-Chi closed his eyes and began to wait for his body to recover. Using the nutrition chamber to condition his body was something he had to do every day for the past half a month. If there was only high-intensity training without recovery conditioning, the damage to the body would be great and it would not be beneficial for his subsequent rune modification experiments. After a few hours of waiting, the water level in the nutrition chamber dropped and the electronic synthesized voice sounded in his ears. As a glass door opened, Feng-Chi stepped out of the nutrition chamber. At this time, his fatigue was swept away and he only felt refreshed. He then walked to the Scarlet restaurant and prepared to have lunch. After lunch, he returned to his room, turned on the computer connected to the Scarlet Base's database, and began to search for information. Now, he had the highest level of authority in the Scarlet Base. He had access to all the information that the Scarlet Institute could find. During this time, through the database, he had a deeper understanding of the Future Research Institute. There was a lot of information that was not left in the message box. He also finally knew why Vivian said that the Future Research Institute might be controlled by a domain force. The most suspicious one was the current president of the Future Research Institute, Li Xingchen. His growth experience was indeed very inspirational. When he was discharged from the front line due to disability, he did not give up. Instead, he relied on self-study to enter the Future Research Institute and eventually became the president of the Future Research Institute. However, after carefully looking through the information, Feng-Chi found many suspicious points. The president of the Future Research Institute before Li Xingchen had opposed Li Xingchen's promotion, but he mysteriously died. The cause of death was a bizarre sudden death, and no reason could be found. This method of death was very similar to the assassination methods of the Technology Research Institute. If he considered Li Xingchen's rapid rise from this direction, he had to suspect that Li Xingchen was most likely a puppet president supported by the Technology Research Institute. In essence, the Future Research Institute was already controlled by the domain force behind the Technology Research Institute. Other than that, after Li Xingchen took over, he carried out a bold reform of the Future Research Institute. Vivian also mentioned one point in the message box. Li Xingchen recruited many domain soldiers who retired from the front line. After training them, he replaced the original batch of people in the Future Research Institute on a large scale. It was equivalent to establishing his own faction in the Future Research Institute, sweeping away all obstacles and consolidating his position. This was also one of the reasons why the Future Research Institute, which was once the #1 research institute in the future city, gradually pulled away from the Technology Research Institute. From this information, the Future Research Institute's position was worrying. However, He couldn't be completely sure that the Future Research Institute was on the side of the domain force. Li Xingqian might have a problem, but at least there was one question that he couldn't answer. Why would the Future Research Institute help the Scarlet Institute? He decided that after the rune modification was completed, he would start to establish his faction. First, he would investigate the 4 resource warehouses in the future city. After looking through the information for a while, he looked at the time and stood up to walk out of the Scarlet Base. In the afternoon, he decided to go back to Star City High School and talk to Lao Wang. He wanted to pass on a message left by Lao Wang in the previous future line. In this future line, Lao Wang's goal was to solve flesh sacrifice. Now that his authority level in the Scarlet Institute had been secretly raised to the highest level, he passed all the identity and pupil recognition checks along the way smoothly. When he arrived at the entrance of the base, there was already a maglev military vehicle waiting for him. After he got on the vehicle and explained his destination, the maglev military vehicle set off in the direction of Star City High School. When Feng Qi returned to the Scarlet Base, the sky was already dark. After he returned to his room, he washed up and changed his clothes. He went straight to the training room and started the high-intensity training again. This time, when he returned to the school, he told Lao Wang his secret. Lao Wang's reaction was just as he expected. He chose to continue to solve flesh sacrifice without hesitation and decided to report to the Scarlet Institute after he finished the work at hand. The foreshadowing of Lin Ran and Lao Wang was already buried. He only needed to wait for the other him to find out the truth in the future dream. What he needed to do was to continue working according to the established trajectory of fate. Sweat dripped down his forehead during the training, but the physical fatigue didn't make his heart waver. He continued to follow the instructions from the broadcast and completed one training movement after another. A month later, in the Scarlet Institute's testing room, a smile appeared on Feng Qi's face as he took the physical examination report from Wei Wei. It looks like I'm ready for the rune modification experiment. Do you need to rest for a day? Vivian asked with a smile. No, I can start at any time. Looking at the calm Feng Qi, Vivian smiled and nodded. Since you said so, come with me. I've already prepared the experiment materials for you. Let's start now. Okay. He followed Vivian out of the testing room and came to the core laboratory of the Scarlet Institute. After a while, Vivian arrived with more than 10 researchers. After they were arranged to lie down on the modification machine, Vivian and the rest of the researchers began to work. Do you need anesthetics? Vivian looked at Feng Qi, who was tied to the operating table, and asked with a teasing expression, Will anesthetics affect the operation? No. Yes. Since it didn't affect the operation, he naturally wouldn't choose to endure. That wasn't the behavior of a real man. It was the behavior of a retard. Don't expect too much from anesthetics. The rune implantation process will reawaken your body. Your perception will be greatly improved, but it will still be very painful. It's not a big problem, Feng Qi said in a deep voice. Then, good luck, Vivian said as she inserted the needle filled with blue liquid into his arm. In an instant, Feng Qi's vision spun and he fell into a coma. The moment he woke up, he felt as if his body was on fire. The pain made his muscles tremble. Why is it so painful? He gritted his teeth. It's just the beginning. You can't even withstand this pain? Vivian's voice came. I just feel pain. I didn't say I couldn't withstand it. Continue. Just as Vivian said, the pain of the rune modification gradually increased. It was like the ancient torture of death by 1,000 cuts. Every inch of his skin was experiencing unbearable destruction, especially his chest, where the rune crystal was embedded. It felt like thousands of ants were gnawing at his heart. It was so painful that he almost suffocated. Under normal circumstances, when the pain exceeded the threshold, he would fall into a coma. But at this moment, his perception was extremely clear. He could even feel that the rune crystal in his chest was gradually becoming a part of his body. It was like he had gained an additional part of his body that he could control. During this process, the rune crystal was adapting to his body and injecting energy into it to modify his body. It was like creating a suitable environment for him to live in. However, the modification process was extremely rough and could easily destroy the environment. During this time, Vivian constantly injected the mixed energy liquid into his body to help him better integrate with the rune crystal. If the amount of energy injected into the rune crystal exceeded the limit, she would dig it out and wait for his body to recover before re-embedding it. Every time the rune crystal was removed, Feng Qi would instantly fall into a coma. When the rune crystal was re-embedded, he would be instantly awakened and enter a state of repeated torture. After a day, the rune modification was still not complete. Feng Qi no longer had the strength to speak. At this moment, there was only one word in his mind: pain. But he still gritted his teeth and endured it. Vivian said that willpower was extremely important during the rune modification process. Those who had a mental breakdown during the rune modification process would generally fall into madness and lose control shortly after the rune modification was completed. Rune modification was the process of the body fusing with a rune crystal, but it was also the process of the host taming the rune crystal. Therefore, Feng Qi remained firm in his heart and used his willpower to feel and resist the invasion of pain. After an unknown period of time, Vivian's slightly tired voice sounded. "Good job, kid. You actually broke the Scarlet Institute's rune modification record. You completed the modification in one try." Hearing this, Feng Qi opened his eyes. Looking at the bright light in front of him, he was slightly surprised. Does it take a few tries under normal circumstances? Not a few tries, but dozens of times. Previously, the rune modification experiments would generally stop halfway and continue after a period of recuperation. Hearing Vivian's answer, Feng Qi was shocked. Then how did I pass it in one try? The previous experimental subjects were forced to stop the experiment because they were on the verge of a mental breakdown. I saw that you were still holding on, so I chose to continue. I didn't expect you to complete it in one try. I have to say, your willpower is amazing. Feng Qi was speechless. At this moment, Vivian took off her mask and came in front of him. What, not satisfied? Then why don't I give you a castration surgery as compensation? Hearing this, Feng Qi raised his middle finger in his mind. Chapter 176. Scarlet Institute. Training Room. Feng Qi, who had completed the rune transformation, was topless and sweating profusely in the training room. After the transformation, the training program changed from physical training to balance training, strength control training, and so on. The intensity of the training decreased, but the difficulty increased. During this period, he had to undergo 3 body checks every day so that he could deal with any unexpected situations in time. The transformation of his body after the rune transformation was also very obvious. His physical strength grew rapidly and had now reached the upper level of dark iron. He would break through to bronze in the near future. Therefore, he had to train every day to adapt to the changes in his physical strength. After a few hours of training, Feng Qi let out a long sigh of relief and looked down at his chest. There was a black rune crystal the size of a thumb on his chest. The crystal was surrounded by bulging blood vessels like a spider web. At this time, the rune crystal was emitting a faint light, flashing rhythmically as if it was breathing. It was constantly injecting energy into his body. His body also underwent some wonderful changes during the fusion with the rune crystal. In a flash, his skin was covered by energy and became dark and transparent. Then, his body collapsed and turned into a pool of black liquid. However, this state only lasted for a few seconds. His body quickly condensed again, and the black energy on the surface of his body dissipated. The liquefied state just now was the ability he obtained after the rune crystal was embedded in the rune crystal. However, he was not familiar with the control of his ability at this stage. He could not control his own movement in the liquefied state. He still needed more training. While feeling tired, he walked to the corner of the training room. After a few hours of conditioning, he once again immersed himself in training. For the next 2 months, Feng Qi spent all his time training. His strength had also reached the lower level of bronze after the transformation of the rune crystal. However, this method of becoming stronger was not as natural as hunting for territory creatures in the dream to obtain talent abilities. There were also many hidden dangers. For example, he would often feel inexplicably irritable. He even lost control for a short period of time. Fortunately, he woke up in time and suppressed his emotions. After 2 months of training, now that his fusion with the rune crystal had stabilized, the rate of increase in his strength had also slowed down. During this period of time, he had become irritable, but he no longer lost control. In Vivian's words, his fusion with the rune crystal was extremely high. As for the reason, Vivian felt that it might have something to do with his willpower during the transformation process. Today was the day he left the Scarlet Institute. After having lunch with Vivian and agreeing to contact her online, he returned to his room and packed his luggage. Then, he pushed his luggage to the entrance of the base. At this time, there were already cars waiting for them. He put his luggage in the trunk and drove out of Scarlet Base. Looking at the shrinking walls of Scarlet's base in the rearview mirror, Fengqi knew that this was the end of Scarlet. His next task was to form a force to fight against the Research Institute of Science and Technology and investigate the Research Institute of the future. On the night he returned to the academy, he first went to the principal's office to explain the situation to Bai Fuxing. Then, he returned to the dormitory and began to plan the next step in detail. At 9 o'clock in the evening, he called Lu Yu and the other students to the field. As for Lin Ran and Mu Qing, he didn't inform them. Lin Ran and Mu Qing had their own destinies, so he wouldn't interfere. Especially Lin Ran. According to his destiny, he might be able to successfully parasitize the Lord of Mist and obtain all of the Lord of Mist's power. He brought Lu Yu and the others to a patch of grass on the field. Everyone sat down in a circle. Looking at the confused faces of the crowd, Fengqi was silent for a moment before he spoke. Everyone, what I'm going to say next may be unbelievable, but I can tell you very responsibly that everything I'm going to say is the truth. Brother Qi, why are you being so mysterious like Lu Yu? Just say what you want to say. I've been with the domain battle team since I was young. We've been through a lot. Xiao Long grinned. When Fengqi heard this, he immediately nodded. Then, he explained in detail that he had the ability to travel through time, that human civilization would be destroyed in the future, and that human society would be infiltrated by the domain forces. Seeing everyone's expressions change from indifference to shock and then to fear, Fengqi could understand the changes in their hearts. He felt the same way when he learned the truth. The victory that was clearly visible in his eyes became blurry and illusory after he checked Star City's database. The lie of his final victory was completely torn apart, and all he saw was the bloody and cruel truth. However, at that time, he chose to face the cruelty and vowed to change the future. After a long silence, Tyrant looked at Fengqi and spoke first. Brother Qi, so Lu Yu wasn't taken away by the 9 dragons pulling the coffin, but by you, right? Faced with the question, Fengqi didn't choose to hide the truth. He nodded and said, after I found out that he was a spy from the Science and Technology Research Institute, I had already decided to remove this mine that was buried around me as soon as possible. Looking at the shocked expressions of the crowd, he continued, I hope to receive your help, but I know that you still don't believe what I said. Next, I will prove it to you one by one. I believe that from the beginning, I knew that human civilization was in danger, Lu Yu suddenly said. When everyone heard this, they all looked at Lu Yu. Lu Yu, how did you know? Xiao Long asked in a deep voice. Lu Yu didn't answer. Instead, he looked at Fengqi and said, I'll help you. Brother Qi, the 3 of us also believe in you. We will listen to your arrangement from now on. At most, we will pay with our lives, Xiao Long also said. I believe in you too. Most of my ancestors died in battle in the domain forces. I can't wait to graduate and join the domain forces as soon as possible, Yin Fu also said. Now that 4 people were willing to help him, Fengqi looked at Kaigua, Yang Xiaoxin, and the others. If you haven't made up your mind, you can go back and think about it. Brother Qi, I don't understand a problem. Don't beat me up if I tell you, Monk said carefully. Speak. Fengqi nodded. Even if the future of humanity is destined, we are safe in this era. Why do you have to go through so much trouble? Why don't you choose to live a peaceful life? Looking at Monk, Fengqi smiled faintly. Because I carry the dreams of many people on my shoulders, including yours. After saying this, Many images appeared in his mind. The sacrificial line, kneeling in front of the guillotine, facing death calmly. Mu Qing, who fought on the front lines with the crime of being a devil. Vivian, who was busy in the laboratory year after year. There were also Lao Wang, the upper echelons of the Scarlet Institute, and the letters that hoped for a better future. Along the way, from the very beginning, when he said that he wanted to change the world with his blood boiling. Now, he was carrying the dreams of many people, and he was even more determined to change the fate of humanity. Brother Qi, are you talking about us from the sacrificial line? Can you tell us more about it? Xiaolong asked curiously. Feng Qi nodded and began to tell the story of the sacrificial line. However, he didn't describe his own tragedy too much. This wasn't something he could persuade others with. He just wanted to let the students know that a brilliant era required hard work. Many people had worked hard for this dream for their entire lives. Listening to his story, everyone was moved. When he finished, he looked at the teary-eyed crowd and smiled. I don't think you'll accept it so quickly. Go back and think about it. Regardless of whether you agree or not, I hope you can keep today's secret. This is related to my future plans. I chose to tell you because I believe in you. Fate is a terrible scriptwriter. Humanity's ending shouldn't be like this, but at least I have to act out my life well. Brother Qi, I'm willing to help you change the future. Yang Xiaoxin stood up and said firmly. Brother Qi, I'm willing to help you too. Jia Yi also stood up. Finally, everyone stood up. Perhaps they were still confused, but there was one thing they all had in common. They all had an ideal future in their hearts. Perhaps this future was different, but without exception, it was linked to a beautiful future. Every dream had a meaning of being protected. Fighting for the future was protecting other people's dreams, but it was also protecting one's own dreams. Looking at the smiling Feng Qi, everyone suddenly laughed as well. They thought of Feng Qi's words when he was telling the story of the future. He said that perhaps one day, when he stood in the middle of a brilliant era, he would realize something when he looked back. The most glorious moment of his life wasn't standing in the middle of a flourishing era to welcome the arrival of a beautiful future. Instead, it was when he came up with the idea of changing the future amidst his sorrow and despair, and chose to bravely walk the bumpy road ahead. A man doesn't have the ambition to achieve great things. He was born with an 8-foot physique. I used to think that Brother Qi was a rare genius, but now I realize that compared to your great ambitions, your talent seems insignificant, Jia Yi lamented. At this moment, the way everyone looked at Feng Qi changed. Feng Qi made them understand that the process of pursuing a brilliant era was equally important. The night wind blew gently. Under the starry sky, everyone looked at each other and smiled. In the days to come, the Daybreak organization was established. Under Feng Qi's leadership, they secretly recruited talents from Star City University and continued to grow. During this period, they didn't neglect their own growth. Relying on the future cultivation knowledge provided by Feng Qi, the members of the organization improved rapidly. Spring passed and autumn came. In the blink of an eye, 3 years had passed. During this period, after layers of screening and verification, the number of members of the Daybreak organization reached 103. Each of them was an outstanding student in Star City University. They could have pursued the life path they had planned long ago after graduation. But after learning the truth, they chose to stand with Feng Qi. Studying for the rise of mankind wasn't just empty talk or slogan. They were willing to work hard for their ideal future, even if they couldn't personally witness the arrival of a brilliant era. They only hoped that the descendants standing under the same starry sky 1,500 years later would still be able to see the resplendent stars when they looked up. After interacting with him, they believed that Feng Qi was the light. They were willing to believe in the light, get close to the light, and then follow the light. They even wanted to become someone like Feng Qi who shone in the long river of history, even if this light might be covered by darkness and the world couldn't see it. The 4th year, graduation season. The plan to fight against the Technology Research Institute was finally launched. Feng Qi brought over 300 members of the Daybreak organization out of Star City University and came to the future city. For safety reasons, the Daybreak organization didn't have a fixed base in the future city. They chose to meet at random places regularly. At the same time, each member had their own secret signal. For the development of the Daybreak organization, Feng Qi brought the members of the organization to raid the Technology Research Institute's warehouse in the western district of the future city. During this operation, Feng Qi confirmed one thing. The Technology Research Institute's warehouse was guarded by a subordinate team of the Future Research Institute. The two research institutes had a close relationship. During this sneak attack, the Future Research Institute's guards in charge of guarding the warehouse weren't prepared at all. Lu Yu slashed open the door. The Future Research Institute's guards weren't able to resist at all. The accumulated resources inside became the first bucket of gold for the development of the Daybreak organization. Apart from that, Feng Qi also found a bunch of sealed black technology equipment in the warehouse. However, he didn't take them away. He couldn't guarantee whether or not there was a tracking device in them. Next, the Daybreak organization became the hidden force that fought against the Technology Research Institute. The operation against the Technology Research Institute had the risk of being exposed at any time. However, Feng Qi was already prepared for this. During this period, the Future Research Institute took the lead and set up an inescapable net in the city to search for them. They quickly used their intelligence network to investigate the general situation of the Daybreak organization. They also learned that the leader of the Daybreak organization was Feng Qi, who was once known as the Light of Humanity. The capture of Feng Qi and the cleanup of the Daybreak organization also began. Even after several years of planning, many Daybreak members still died in the follow-up missions. This was especially so for the City Defense Army of the Future Research Institute, which affected the follow-up operations of the Daybreak organization quite a bit. However, Feng Qi and the members of the organization were already prepared to fight to the death. Bringing only 300 people to fight against the Technology Research Institute and the Future Research Institute was like a mayfly trying to shake a tree. He and Vivian had analyzed the situation. It was impossible for the weak Daybreak organization to fight against the powerful Technology Research Institute and the Future Research Institute. They were developing, and so were the Technology Research Institute and the Future Research Institute. Moreover, these two research institutes had more resources. The Daybreak organization couldn't compare to them in terms of talent or resources. Therefore, when changing the timeline, the Daybreak organization had definitely received the help of other human organizations. This was the only possibility. This was also the reason why Feng Qi had chosen to advance so rashly. He was looking forward to meeting his peers. He was also using his actions to tell the human organizations that chose to hide and endure. There are still people resisting. There are still people fighting. You are not alone. Future City, eastern suburbs of the city. At this moment, Feng Qi and Lu Yu made use of the night to pass through the bushes and get close to the Technology Research Institute's warehouse number 2. This time, he only brought Lu Yu with him and did not intend to launch a raid on warehouse number 2. Now that the defenses of the warehouses were strengthened, he didn't want to take any risks before he was confident in winning, even though Lu Yu was strong enough to fight against a domain battle team. After getting close to the warehouse, they went around the guards and arrived at the ventilation duct. Wait for me here. I will go in and take a look. Be careful. Lu Yu immediately nodded. At this moment, Feng Qi's body turned into a black liquid and entered the ventilation duct. A moment later, he arrived at the warehouse and started to check the layout of the warehouse. After memorizing the layout and the positions of the guards, he was about to return. At this moment, a green light swept over him, and the alarm rang. Realizing that he had been exposed, he immediately increased his stealth speed. At this moment, numerous bullets shot toward him. In stealth mode, his body's resistance to physical damage was strengthened. Although these spiritual bullets were powerful, they couldn't cause him any harm. However, just as he was about to sneak into the ventilation duct, a tall and thin figure in a military uniform blocked his path. A light screen condensed from spirit chi blocked in front of him. Seeing this, Feng Qi's heart sank. He immediately decided to force his way out. However, what shocked him was that no matter how hard he tried, the light screen remained firm. At this moment, the light screen shrunk and trapped him. Under the pressure of the spirit energy, Feng Qi's liquid body twisted and finally returned to normal. He clenched his fist and shattered the light screen. He looked at the figure standing not far away. The man opposite him was about 9 meters tall and wore the uniform of the Star City Guards. He was looking at him coldly. Soon, members of the garrison army arrived and surrounded him. Facing the encirclement, Feng Qi knew that he was doomed. However, he still clenched his fist. As he roared, he took the initiative to attack. At this moment, Lu Yu was still outside. He could only rely on himself now. In the desperate battle, the wounds on his body increased. In the end, he was captured alive by the guards. "Boss, we caught him. What should we do?" Holding the communication device, the man in the military uniform reported the situation. "Okay, I'll wait for you in warehouse number 2. In order to ensure that Feng Qi wouldn't escape, after putting down the communication device, the man in the military uniform punched and kicked the dying Feng Qi again. A moment later, the warehouse door opened. 5 military vehicles from the Future Research Institute arrived. From the leading military vehicle, a bald, burly man walked out. He was the current director of the Future Research Institute, Li Xingchen. He brought his subordinates and walked toward Feng Qi. He squatted down and grinned. "You're really hard to deal with. Unfortunately, you still lost." At this moment, Feng Qi was sure of one thing. Li Xingchen was indeed a puppet director supported by the Future Research Institute. The mysterious death of the previous director was obviously to help the controllable Li Xingchen take the position. He raised his head and looked at Li Xingchen through the gap of his swollen eyes. He sneered. "What are you laughing at? As a human, you're willing to be a dog. How sad." "Haha, well said. I'm a dog." Li Xingchen wasn't ashamed. Instead, he laughed. Killing you isn't enough. I have to torture you and force you to tell me something." Li Xingchen mocked. His tone was full of threats. However, such threats were harmless to Feng Qi. He wasn't afraid at all. Looking at Li Xingchen, he smiled. "You can try. Can you tell me something?" Li Xingchen suddenly asked. "Ask, I'll answer depending on my mood. Why did you still stand up when you were bound to lose? Someone has to stand up. Why can't that person be me?" Hearing this, Li Xingchen laughed as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. Then, a murderous look appeared in his eyes. With a wave of his hand, the clothes on his right arm were torn apart, revealing a black metal modified arm. A gust of wind blew. Feng Qi opened his eyes and raised his head. He chose to face death. However, what he didn't expect was that the mechanical arm suddenly turned and stabbed into the chest of the man in military uniform, standing behind him. Blood dripped onto his head, and Feng Qi couldn't help but be stunned. "Leave no one alive." At this moment, Li Xingchen sneered. As soon as he finished speaking, the soldiers behind him moved and attacked the warehouse guards. Moments later, Li Xingchen squatted in front of Feng Qi, lit a cigarette, and smiled. "Can you still walk?" "Yes." Hearing this, Li Xingchen nodded. He took out his communicator, pressed the switch, and spoke in a deep voice. Warehouse number 2 was attacked by Breaking Dawn, led by Feng Qi. Are the nearby city guards eating sh*t? Hundreds of people approached warehouse number 2 without anyone noticing. Hurry up and support them. If warehouse no. 2 is breached, don't blame me for breaking an X. Then, Li Xingchen looked at his subordinates who were spreading fuel around and roared. Hurry up. I still have to search the city for Feng Qi. I'm busy. Feng Qi, that bastard, burned warehouse number 2. I'm so angry. Feng Qi was speechless. Chapter 177. F Pirate Chapter. Support original version, starting point, Chinese, web, updated at 1:35 p.m. The law holds the fish to fish. The dangerous test body is here. Why is it that the research and technical department resists the high chess, seals the white? Suddenly he, Lung Yi, is not from the Chun Xing Li. This is to listen to the eyes roll over. Do not bear the chess seal. Come out to stand and meet you. Why do this choice is not me? Indeed, like. No one in other areas has not died in sin. The extreme stupidity is in the real law. Yulu, what birth hair seems to know the meaning of. Go to Lu Zhuchao's fear is not the slightest bit, he said, smiling mouth Chun Xing Li. Strong, very similar appearance. Right, Lu is the sun is small. Confused, sometimes he pauses. The person is already Chun Xing Li said that the chess seal will listen to this time. One of the goals of the core resists, he is the research and technical department of the Chun Xing Li will recognize him. When the Chun Xing Li will see. Lung Yi shows the affection of the Lu. This is to listen to. The person himself, the manual stop. Dao shouts, pain, pain, strong chest seal, ready to move. This Lu to know the meaning of. Ascending and climbing the upper body of the beginning to open the momentum. The top of him is suspended in the air. The scabbard unsheathed the lawn sword behind his back. The cold Lu who has become a divine. The chest seal, scars and wounds are all over his body. The scabbard returns to the lawn, sword wave the strange chest seal this. Why do you do this? Why do you say that you can? Moving to resist the development of the better, to form a group, to ambush some of these people, he will think that it is natural to do this. The chest seal of the move Pei Qin is somewhat clear that he, in this to think. The side of the lurking person is standing. He is like, in the back of the research and technical department of the power domain, is not fishing. At the entrance of the big warehouse, the shadow of the Lu body appeared. The warehouse adjusted the ignition point, spreading the speed of the fire snake between the escape of sparks. Half of the smoke in the hand of the missile Chun Xing Li, the chest seal behind the support. Lu Daosher saves the style of choice with the choice of the capital. He is only. Alone does not believe in myself. The firm is also him. Touching the force before the main force comes, the human being lurks in the middle. The old is still somewhat. The waiting period is the most sealed chess. Duan Jiejian's firing speed is high enough to enter the weaving group Xiao Pe under the help Chun Xing Li's eye. The weaving group Xiao broke into the pulling people division. This will be the end. Touching the going things man's upper single name and writing test. He gave the single name 1 to returning Chun, Star Li Chiebing. In the middle, he came to the field of sending origin resources to hold the Calamity General, and after that, he joined the chess seal and crisp dry. The researchers of the Academy have not returned to bring back the meeting, otherwise they would have come to hold the Calamity, Star Li as usual. It doesn't matter whether he gets it or not. Dao should return to Lu. Okay, you can sleep with me first, Lu. Smile with your mouth open and seal the chess. Here you are. Let's try to reconcile you and Qian Qian. Nodding his head, after half a day of silence, Chun Xing Li's words were very interesting. The lower academy's research and technique department's hidden righteous reputations, I can use it. But when the lower academy's research and technique department's resistance and technique department's resistance and technique department's resistance and technique department's resistance and technique department's resistance. Why don't you come and take over? Tell me. Chess seal Xiang Wang turned his head. Chun Xing Li, who had stopped in his tracks, suddenly spoke. When I come, I miss you. When I come, I will follow you. I will accept you. Let's go to the military carriage and turn around. Chun Xing Li, try thinking about me again. Down mouth opens, eyes squint chest seal. I can't take it anymore. Hurry up and reply to me. Similar to the 10 layers of high red. Since he is unable to support himself, he is able to seal off the chess pieces in the end. Later he is able to leave the Chun Star, Li Zai. Leaving behind the convoy, he followed the convoy's bodyguards one after another. Chun Xing and Li Dao listened attentively. The chess seal, the capture, and the search city are all open. The carriages are all filled with people. Dao Xiaoming. This subordinate is Li Wan Shuo of Wangchen Star. Let's make the connection first. Let's recover first. Qi Luo Lian came to throw Chun Xing Li to take his place. When he stretched out his hand, he was in Lu. Lai Wei, signal dark, 11 to 11 frequently choose my connection. If you want, you can rely on complete safety certificate guarantee. I am Qi Luo Lian. Dao continues and combines. Come to throw him to Qi Luo Lian. Chun Xing Li follows. Chi Luo Lian's small palm, who was a subordinate, waved his hand. His subordinate's name is Yizhua Chao. I hear Chen Xingli. I'll give you one for each of us. Scarlet's face really knows, and love heart is Chen Xingli at this time. Make a plan for this abandoned Junkai Academy to study Scarlet. Success can't be tried. How can you not make a plan to penetrate back to understanding the meaning? Try to go to the style square to change the choice. If you choose, you can still choose. If you lose, you will know that you will make a plan to penetrate back. This is like a few days ago when Academy researched Scarlet time. My heart is not willing to accept it. It is difficult to move and make it necessary. The defeat of the situation can be seen. Feeling this, he can understand the chess seal. Chen Xing's mixed feelings. God is looking forward to. Losing the tail, losing the plan to come to the meeting, I am willing to work so hard. Many crimes piled up in the name of MO, and the secret of the chess seal was hiding. The top chess piece is sealed in the hangar. The general is hesitant. The general is hesitant. The general is unable to fight his subordinates, and the star is Li, and the production of Xiangying is broken. In the dark, in the development of information, in the knowledge of the use of benefits, in the name of the organization, in the dawn of breaking, soldiers and soldiers under the command of the modified machinery and machinery of the advanced and retired lines, and they're all trustworthy and trustworthy. Research Institute research, come not control palm, completely not yet not him. The Institute of Sports Research and Technical Research Department has carried out an investigation on the dark side of the needles. This is also Chen Xingli at the same time. The number of times a crisis had been resolved, and he had helped them, arranging for the safety of the Prime Minister's research and research skills. Kalu had told him that he wanted to move the initiative to meet Chen Xingli, and that Li Ziri would come pick him up. Thanks to the smooth road path, this academy's research and technical department can resist the chess seal after touching the Chen Xingli and Zai. The Department of Linkage Master has chosen to choose even more. Ren Xin has deeply added to the Chen Xingli. Restricted Chi Spirit Technical Research Department's Black appears to be able to predict that he has pushed the Department of Inner Academy's Research and Technical Departments period. Injury to come to the time of 10 days with chess seal, inside the day to come to receive. Fainted into the trap, the eyes closed on him, after the transfer of Yu Lu. The line of power passed through more and more. There's a master who has really confirmed him. Clear proof is enough to be able to wrest the letter, said that the chess seal. Zha Chang thought about it. The entrapment has already gone to the sea brain. Should return, there is no Chen Xingli. The chess seal smile is still there. The swollen face and blue nose is already looking forward. Through experience, I have many things to do, as I should respond to more, when to think that you really are. Lost not returned to me, now less to the continuation of the square exchange with me. Do you want me to do? Mix me with a line of time bar, do you want? Dao Xiao Wei, Chen Xingli looks at chess seal time. Strike Chong Lai is strong to receive the heart of him. The sound strikes the metal set off. The fist clenches the fierce Chen Xingli. The tail recovers the defeat to meet the end of the game, the arrangement of his own to know the meaning. Believe in the difficult feeling that he commands the phase is really this makes that. Say that the chess seal, the letter phase, gradually chase also him, weaving interlaces through the rest letter many. Network information letter Zhang, out of weaving the sea brain in Chen Xingli, information letter to the chess seal pass through. Lost the most only, plan to penetrate the reverse march in the main courtyard research red scarlet. I know that it is also. The courtyard research red scarlet, strength and potential lurk hidden, standing behind the chess seal to come to the original, matter one. I know that it is also his time with. Beat the center of Chen Xingli, who is gradually chased by doubts, the narration he listened. The secret has already begun to speak in detail. Absolutely refuse to have the chess seal. Ask the opposite side. What you know, tell me in detail, I and. To come to the not yet surely branch, know that I but, lost in the present there was once. Between the lines of power, shuttle through the embrace of the true you. Lung Isho's Chunxing Li. The words of the chess seal. This said that Zhu Cheng has expectations. Clearly prove that this, born it knows that there is no previous cloth in the creation of the hand, to personally ink the core of the most inner courtyard research technical department, is, in the inner half of the month and a half in the meeting, the particle chi spirit left the swim of the inner courtyard gong. If the sand can be used, the area of the forbidden chi spirit name. The technical department, black item 1, push out the department of the inner courtyard research technical department close to the most. To come to the not yet done academy research technical department, someone say that he can, but when the seal waits to go to the next time, there's no him could I do when the hair growth matter is bigger, but, and so on and so forth. The domain leads one to fall, pull up the action, and move the line to look at the night, the sacrificial lambs of the night. The sacrificial lambs are the same as before. Breaking through the Academy's Research and Technology Department, the Academy's Research Red Scarlet Outer City is the same as before. But there is no central chest seal, the words are heard. The matter of the hair growth will not come one say. Clearly prove that I want you. Head shook him, asking the opposite side of Chun Xingli. Let the Academy Research Technical Department enter and insert the person, will you? When you shake him, the mysterious god of ink will be able to do it. The Academy Research Technique Department of the shadow and darkness behind the curtain will be able to do it. The Academy Research Technique Department of the Arcane Skill Seeker Protection Department will be able to do it. Dismiss the spy between the weaving group to break. The Inner Courtyard Research Technical Department is sue or is recognized only the power between the lines shuttle through the owner of the chest seal to recognize not him, but the knowledge of enough people outside the one, or is more obvious to believe. The real department of the holographic letter to say that the chest seal is sent to him. Really recognize the change gradually from the expression of feelings, disdain to the beginning from Chun Xing Li, the explanation of the chest seal, to listen. Experience the line of sacrifice oneself to start to talk about him. Chun Xing Li's puzzled face looked at him. The leader of the team battle domain is Lang Shi, the member one of the limited right team echelon of the 2nd Academy Research Technical Department is Zheng Hua. What do you think? You solve Zheng when not also, pass to see Zheng when not I blame difficult. Limited right team echelon number 1. Dao inquired, and suddenly he. Limited right team echelon number 1 belongs to the Inner Courtyard Research Technical Department in you. Route 1 point to self-support, and after the smoke flies, to Chinxingli? Do you believe that I have to thank you? Do you believe that the history of going to see him and together, realize and come not return enough, the power between the lines shuttle through, I said that I really like? Dao continued him. Chun Xingli looked at. The end of the game lost you to see the history of passing through the classics. I am only, you are determined not to have me. The choice of the road, I decided not to have you. The cold face, Chun Xingli, the words are heard here. Chun Xingli, he is not. The hand black small and the destruction is the end of the game the most. There is no Academy Research Technical Department to look at the history of the history from. With the fixed annotation of the classics, what is the end of the game he? When the Academy Research Technical Department resists the rebellion, that is in preparation for him to say clearly, to stand out and dare to break the rules of the game he. Come out and stand out to choose Chun Xingli. The foundation of the secret to hide will be the period of time that the Academy Research Technical Department is defeated completely. The Academy Research Red Scarlet is to walk the history according to the defeat is and the defeat will be fixed on you can. Dao, smiling mouth, grinning chest seal. Chun Xing Li's angry face is looking at. You have helped me. The exposure of my lower self in advance is not only here, but also here. My subordinates you are hesitant about not even the slightest bit will also meet me. Before you obstruct the road on the road, I will succeed in meeting your Tiani. If you can, good luck to you. Dao smiling, he looks at Chun Xing Li. The fob white lump is out spitting mouth Zhang. Will continue to be me. The same does not recognize him. The point of view Chun Xing Li is so. With his fighting spirit and exerting effort, he has made a choice among those who are not perfect in the way of the road. His strength and power are similar to those who are not perfect. The force field territory devours the reacting ability Tian awaits only the arrogant, strong strength people. It uses the advantage. The force field territory surrender. In the station, choose Chun Xing Li. Invade the territory cut off the head from trying to taste the fruit into the research technical use advantage. Plan to penetrate the reacting ability. Choose the Academy Research Red Scarlet. Finish the same as the side's choice. The force field every time is only. The force field similar people, he has also agreed. The outer Academy Research has not been eliminated with the Academy Research Red Scarlet. There are many people who are also hidden in the righteous Central Society. People know that he. The head shook the chest seal, said to persuade Chun Xing the opposite. The Academy Research has not come to me. The dawn break-in, so you only must not say, there are so many hidden and so, where to abandon is still you persuade me. The upper part of the force field with %06 to the city has not yet controlled the palm scripture above. Chun Xing Li's group battle domain leader level is a few times better than the military defense city, shaking the palm. The research and technology of the back of a strong and powerful force field is proof enough of this. The Academy Research Technical Department dare not to return. The Duan rank of Chun Xing Li appears. It is clear that the 10 points are also hidden. The side of this kind of people to the side body of the entire Academy Research, not little. Breath 1 to relax the central chest seal. The words are heard. The judge of the force field, its echo shadow. I am also the side body of the line. I is in the Academy Research Technical Department. He's not the branch also, but according to the ability, I have the military defense city and the group battle domain leader. The middle hand, I am in the branch big. Control in the rear of the force field territory. The Academy Research Technical Department is still control in the rear of the Academy Research Technical Department. You came to the Academy Research, not in the present place. Recognize the land you is not the hair of Chun Xing Li. Is that wrong? That's right. The Jin Chang Zheng is capable of strategizing. You can vouch for him. The research of the Jin Chang Zheng is not original. Why do you do this? Changing the body of the Jin Chang Zheng is very helpful. The research of the Jin Chang Zheng is not in the Jin Chang Zheng. He arranges for the Jin Chang Zheng. Before the Jin Chang Zheng retired from the front line, many of the Jin Chang Zheng are recruiting you, those who were successful in reporting to me. Chengguo is not in, the fruit is only. The Duan hand does not choose him, but the bright light goes to him. How does the person look? One is Chun Xing Li by Ming Chi Seal. The words are heard. The name of the back of the Force Field Territory Research Technical Department to me. He is killed. The coming out is not done. What do I have no purpose to achieve? Can the hand go down? He killed the killer to kiss me. The Taoist smiled and grinned. He shook at Chun Xing Li, who revealed his body and asked the opposite side. Dao Xiao inquired. Suddenly the chest seal. Sure lousy were once he knew. I relied on. How is the death of the Academy Research before the head of the Academy has not yet? The weapon people, it is not killed, I am. Biting his teeth to choose. The case is not yet answered. There are many doubts. There are many sinners in him, but go through the Jew dizziness can be followed. The star gold eyes can see that he is only at this moment. Half a star is not weak to recover the body's body after the creation of the modification rune. The body's strength can be endowed with the heaven has compared. Dao you bear the chest seal. Die not. Can you live still? Dao Xiao. The front follow the chest seal to come. Step him. Smoke follow a little hand. Come down from the carriage. Another from Chun Xing Li this time. The carriage played chest seal under the support of a Yulu. Stop at a remote place outside the city, not in the carriage behind the small one. In the middle of the night, enter the carriage. The warehouse drove away from the Academy Research. Not 5, the car behind the Chun Xing Li Zhu followed. The head nodded the chest seal. Light puzzled to cast the Lu Zhu looked. Let's change to the side, the carriage first. Qifeng's support of the Chun Xing Li Zhu over to take over him. 2 steps forward. Also, I gave it to the ability, it is this. The arm of the machine after the modification. starting to raise the Chun Xing, Li Zhu said. After it died, it was killed, the division raised it to take the dog when the people gave it to. Dao Xiao inquired about the side's power domain to resist you. Compared to me, and is only. Dao Xiao grinned. Smoke a Chun Xing Li. Wrong to say that there is no fall? The human one that chooses to hide, choose to refuse, this kind of person standing in front of you? The person lurks. The person lurks in the kind of one that seeks to ask me, is you, Dao know me, but is it? I asked to ask more questions, is it not? Chapter 178. Future City. At this time, Feng Qi was wearing a windbreaker and a mask. He wrapped himself up tightly and walked on Street 23 in the East City. Future City was a technological city. All the streets and alleys were installed with surveillance cameras connected to the city's Skynet. All the surveillance cameras had facial recognition functions. As an S-Class wanted criminal in Future City, he had to ensure that his whereabouts were not discovered, even if the surveillance was managed by the Future Research Institute. But Li Xingqian also said that not everyone in the Future Research Institute was trustworthy. It was close to dawn. There were few people on the streets. The weather was cold after the rain, and the roads were still wet. The cleaning robots were playing music and driving slowly from afar, cleaning the roads along the way. He came to a bar at the end of the street and pushed the door open. Soothing music was playing in the bar, and people were shuttling back and forth. It was very lively and seemed to be a different world from the outside. He came to a corner of the bar. He sat down sideways and looked up at Li Xingqian, who was drinking alone. Thank you. What are you thanking me for? I've been so many things in your name. I'm happy. As for the resources I snatched, I can't bring them back, so I might as well give them to you. When the time comes, you'll be wiped out, and it'll be enough to prove that you did all those things. Li Xingqian grinned, then picked up the glass and downed it in one gulp. Have a drink? No. Why are you looking for me this time? Hearing Feng Qi's rejection, Li Xingqian poured himself a full glass, then shook his head. I really don't have anything in common with you. Pursuing your dreams and enjoying life don't conflict. Why must you constantly put pressure on yourself? Finding joy in hardship is what we should do. When the time comes, even if we die, at least we'll be happy and have no regrets. I just don't like drinking. If you prepare a table full of delicious food, I guarantee that I'll eat more than you. Feng Qi couldn't help but roll his eyes, then continued. Okay. Let's get down to business. What news do you have for me? Faced with the question, Li Xingqian put down the glass, lit a cigarette, and took a deep breath. You guys should stop for a while. The domain force behind the Research Institute is about to make a move. Hearing this, Feng Qi frowned slightly. Tell me in detail. Yesterday, the domain forces behind the Science and Technology Research Institute held a high-level meeting. In the meeting, they clearly stated that they will soon make a move against you. As for why they didn't make a move before, it's because the domain organization behind the Science and Technology Research Institute received news that you're the spokesperson of a certain domain organization. They think that you're trying to test them by targeting the Science and Technology Research Institute. Just like how the Science and Technology Research Institute tested the Tiger Soul Institute, your actions were also misunderstood by them as a probing challenge, so they chose to tolerate it. During this time, they were also collecting information about you in an attempt to understand your background. However, the situation is different now. They no longer intend to continue investigating the non-existent domain faction behind you. Thus, your breaking dawn is in danger. Hearing this, Feng Qi immediately understood one thing. It was obvious that the Shadow Hunter had sold his information to the Research Institute. However, this action actually helped him, as the domain forces behind the scenes did not make a move. After understanding the situation, he looked at Li Xingqian, who was still spewing out white mist, and frowned. Smoke less. I don't see you stop. Hearing these words, Li Xingqian grinned. My body has completed 76% of the psionic mechanical transformation. Any toxic substances that enter my body can be excreted without leaving any residue. I won't die. Let me show you. While speaking, Li Xingqian suddenly opened his mouth and spat out a puddle of black liquid with cigarette oil on the ground. Feng Qi was speechless. Looking at the mischievous Li Xingqian, he was speechless. Is there anything else? Recently, The domain faction behind the Science and Technology Research Institute has also suspected that there may be internal problems. Every planned action is known to you in advance, so there may be an internal investigation. I probably won't secretly target the Science and Technology Research Institute for the time being. Let's wait for the limelight to die down. Hearing this, his heart trembled. The truth weapon that was arranged to be used when he was sacrificed suddenly appeared in his mind. At that time, through the false information deliberately left by the Scarlet Institute in Twilight City, they learned that there may be werewolves from the Tiger Soul Institute in their organization. The Science and Technology Research Institute had carried out an internal investigation. During this period, the most important person in the Science and Technology Research Institute, Mo, created a high-tech device to interrogate all Core Circle members. At this time, the domain faction behind the Science and Technology Research Institute had begun to suspect that there was a mole, and Li Xingqian was in danger of being exposed. Thinking of this, he immediately told Li Xingqian about the truth weapon. After listening to his reminder, Li Xingqian was still calm. Don't worry, the truth weapon may be useful to others, but I'm more inclined towards psionic robots now. That thing is useless to me. What about your brain? Fengqi couldn't help but roll his eyes. It's also half psionic mechanization. You're so cruel to yourself. To achieve great things, you should be cruel to yourself. Li Xingqian said as he picked up the glass and took a big gulp. Don't use the communicator to contact me for the time being. Wait for me to contact you. Now that the Science and Technology Research Institute is conducting an investigation, you may appear next to me at any time. Understood. By the way, you've contacted all the people on the list. I've recruited a few, and they're all very talented people. Where did you get this list? These people on the list are all on the Science and Technology Research Institute's assassination list. Hearing this answer, Fengqi was enlightened. The list that Li Xingqian gave him allowed him to recruit many like-minded people and allowed Daybreak to grow rapidly. The only thing that he regretted was that at this stage, there were no human spies that contacted him. He could understand this. Every human spies must have their own plan to save the world. Contacting him at this time was obviously a very risky move, and it might cause their plan to fail completely. What he needed to do now was to continue increasing the strength and influence of Daybreak, to let the spies see the hope of overthrowing the Science and Technology Research Institute. After coming back to his senses, he looked at Li Xingqian and smiled. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave. It doesn't feel safe to stay outside. Where are you living now? Li Xingqian asked curiously. I don't have a fixed residence. I change places every day. Recently, I've been living in the sewers. It's relatively safe there. That must be tough. Li Xingqian grinned. Not a trace of sympathy could be seen on his face. As the saying goes, the most dangerous place is the safest place. Why don't I stay at your place for a night? Don't get me into trouble. Li Xingqian's smile froze. After chatting for a while, Fengqi stood up and walked out of the tavern. After walking along the street for a while, he turned into a dark alley and disappeared. In the following days, Fengqi led Daybreak into hibernation. 3 months later, Fengqi received a sensational news from Daybreak's outside investigators. Li Xingqian and more than 10 core members of the Science and Technology Research Institute were arrested. They were judged as human traitors and will be publicly executed in the execution grounds of the future city 3 days later. Fengqi was shocked when he heard the news. Li Xingqian's sudden exposure had many suspicious points in his view. Although Li Xingqian was restricted by the power behind the Science and Technology Research Institute, the power in his hands couldn't be underestimated. Even if he couldn't defeat the power behind the Science and Technology Research Institute, he could still cause them some trouble and make them pay a price. However, the current situation was that Li Xingqian was about to be executed, but the Science and Technology Research Institute didn't make any moves. More importantly, the Science and Technology Research Institute only executed Li Xingqian and more than 10 people. However, there were definitely more than 10 people in the Science and Technology Research Institute who followed Li Xingqian in the dark. There seemed to be many secrets hidden in this. With doubts, he immediately contacted the members of Daybreak and began investigating Li Xingqian's exposure. In the following days, nearly half of Daybreak's members went out to gather information. From the follow-up reports, Feng-Chi learned that the Science and Technology Research Institute had charged Li Xingqian with more than 10 crimes. The three most serious ones were: 1. Murdering his teacher, who was the previous head of the Science and Technology Research Institute. 2. Secretly siding with the power of the domain in an attempt to subvert human civilization. 3. Secretly colluding with Daybreak to obstruct the development of the Science and Technology Research Institute and attempting to control the entire Science and Technology Research Institute. There were many other crimes, each of which was enough to sentence Li Xingqian to death. However, there was no answer to why Li Xingqian was exposed from the current information. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. The streets and alleys of Future City were empty. The residents all turned on the official live broadcast software. The scene of the live broadcast was the first execution ground of Future City. Li Xingqian had yet to be escorted to the scene, but the execution ground was already surrounded by residents of Future City. After learning about Li Xingqian's actions from the official announcement, they gnashed their teeth in hatred. They were waiting for Li Xingqian, the traitor of humanity, to be judged by justice. At this moment, Feng-Chi wore a windbreaker and blended into the crowd, quietly waiting. He was unwilling to accept Li Xingqian's ending. However, he was powerless to change anything. At this stage, Daybreak was unable to fight with the Science and Technology Research Institute. Fighting with the enemy with passion was like throwing an egg against a rock. In the end, they would be smashed to pieces. He, as a sacrifice, had a more important mission to continue. He couldn't fall here. However, after 2 years of being together, he still came to send his friend off. For safety reasons, he made some minor adjustments to his body with the help of a disguise artist from Daybreak. This included some changes to his face and appearance. While waiting, Li Xingqian was escorted to the execution ground by 2 city defense soldiers. At this moment, Li Xingqian's clothes were tattered and most of the machinery on his body was damaged. He looked very pathetic. The 2 city defense soldiers escorted Li Xingqian to a metal chair and forced him to sit down. They then used a special chain to tie him to the chair and placed a metal cap on his head. Li Xingqian was going to undergo spiritual punishment. Spiritual punishment was similar to electrocution before the cataclysm. The difference was that the energy released was a special type of spiritual energy extracted from high-purity dead spirit ores. When this spiritual energy was injected into the body, the consciousness of the person being executed would be quickly eaten away. The process was extremely painful. On the chair, Li Xingqian looked at the angry people in front of him expressionlessly. At this moment, he didn't feel much emotion. As time passed, the execution time approached. The executioner standing behind him routinely asked, "Do you have any last words before you die?" "Give me a cigarette," Li Xingqian said without hesitation, and a smile appeared on his face. "You were once my idol. Your inspirational growth has always inspired me." The executioner's eyes were filled with anger. "Then I'm sorry to disappoint you. Quickly give me a cigarette." According to the rules of the Future City, this request of mine should be fulfilled, right? Li Xingqian said nonchalantly. "You think you're worthy?" The executioner was about to continue scolding, but was held back by his companion. He then took out a cigarette and stuffed it into Li Xingqian's mouth and lit it for him. "According to the rules, we've fulfilled your last words." "All right, I have no other last words." Li Xingqian took a deep puff of the cigarette. The cigarette but emitted sparks. He opened his mouth and exhaled a cloud of white smoke with a satisfied expression. Seeing Li Xingqian like this, the people below were furious. They all protested that a traitor like Li Xingqian should be treated differently. Why should his dying request be fulfilled? They even threw small stones that they had prepared beforehand at him. Looking at the residents of the city below, Li Xingqian's heart was filled with emotions. "I live for you, but you see me as a demon." An indescribable sadness mixed with anger emerged from the bottom of his heart. But when that kind face appeared in his mind, the anger in his heart dissipated. He took another deep puff of the cigarette, and a smile appeared on his face. At this moment, the execution time was up. The two executioners pressed the switch at the same time. Suddenly, a black psionic substance invaded Li Xingqian's body. His eyes instantly turned red. The pain on the mental level made him clench his teeth. Before he died, many memories flashed through his mind. A familiar and kind voice rang in his ears. Li Xingqian, I let you stand beside the demon to kill the demon. I'm your proof of allegiance. This kind of death has value. Why should you be sad? Turn your grief into strength. Don't disappoint me. I've already created the best starting point for you. At the beginning of the story, a husband and wife both died in an attack by a transcendent domain creature. A 5-year-old son cried on the street while hugging a doll, looking for his parents. He became an orphan. In the midst of hunger and cold, he met a kind old man and had a home. The old man raised the boy and sent him to Victory Academy. He watched him join the domain battle group and become a frontline soldier. After the boy lost his arm, he taught him how to stand up again. Finally, under the old man's guidance, he successfully entered the Future Research Institute and became a researcher. The old man was the previous head of the Future Research Institute. As his consciousness gradually faded, Li Xingqian suddenly felt a sense of release. The moment he killed the old man, he knew that he was already dead. But before he died, he felt that he was back. The scene of him sitting on a mountain peak with the old man appeared in his mind. At that time, they were hugging the first ray of sunlight in the future city. The old man's hazy face gradually became clearer under the light. Old man, I've let you down. At the last moment of his life, many regrets appeared in his heart. When he was young, he could reach out and pluck the stars. Now he was 7 feet tall. The sky was too high to reach a peaceful and warm future so far away. Sigh, I can't accept this. The spark in his mouth burned to the end. Li Xingqian's body seemed to have lost its support and drooped down weakly. The world didn't know that this star had voluntarily entered the darkness and tried to burst out with light, wanting to illuminate the whole world. Hearing the cheers, Feng Qi clenched his fist. Li Xingqian's words to him, with a smile, appeared in his mind. He said that the situation of human civilization was worrying. It was like a tree. The more it yearned for the sunlight at the top, the deeper its roots had to reach into the dark underground, where there were nutrients and power. We are still too weak. Only the power of the devil could defeat the devil. He took another deep look at Li Xingqian and gave him the highest salute in his heart. A month later, in front of Li Xingqian's cenotaph, Feng Qi lit 3 cigarettes and stuck them in the soil in front of the cenotaph. He then opened the lid and poured a bottle of liquor. If I'm not dead, I'll come to see you every year. Just then, a voice came from behind. Feng Qi, let's talk. He immediately turned his head and saw a burly man wearing the uniform of the Future Research Institute, standing not far away. Just as he was on high alert, the burly man took out his communication device. Channel 11 to 11, code, future. When he heard this, he was taken aback and asked subconsciously, You are? The current director of the Future Research Institute, Li Xingqian's successor, and your companion. When Feng Qi heard this, he was stunned. He suddenly understood why Li Xingqian died. He also understood why the Future Research Institute didn't have any reaction to the death of Li Xingqian and the others. Just like the old man, Li Xingqian also chose a trustworthy person in a desperate situation and used his own death to help him take root in the darkness. The forces behind the Science and Technology Research Institute still couldn't erase that star. It just returned in a different way and waited for the day it bloomed. Chapter 179. Through the description of Li Xingqian's successor, Jia Hui, Feng Qi knew the whole story. Just as Li Xingqian had predicted, the domain force behind the Research Institute had recently launched an internal investigation. Even Li Xingqian himself became the target of suspicion. After a series of investigations, Li Xingqian realized that he would be exposed sooner or later, so he made the same choice as the previous director. He supported a trustworthy person to take over his position and let the successor use him as a bargaining chip to prove his loyalty to the power behind the Research Institute. In the end, Jia Hui personally sold Li Xingqian to the power behind the Research Institute. Li Xingqian's self-sacrifice made Feng Qi respect him. When he was young, he always thought that becoming the hero that Lao Wang talked about was a very cool thing to do. But ever since he embarked on the tortuous path of saving the world, he understood the tragedy and sacrifice behind these two words. A new plan began after Li Xingchen's death. City of the Future, in a sewer in the eastern part of the city. In the pitch-black environment, there was a sour smell of rotten food. From time to time, the squeaking of rats could be heard from nearby. But Feng Qi was already familiar with the environment. In the dead of the night, he crawled out of the sewer and walked along the dark alley without streetlights. When he came to a lit area, he took out the encrypted phone given to him by the Scarlet Institute and pressed the power button. When the phone was turned on, a series of messages appeared on the screen. After reading the messages, he clicked on his contact list and found contact number 1. He sent a message. Feng Qi, are you there? After a while, Vivian replied. Vivian, don't you sleep at night? Feng Qi, night is the best time for activities. Wake up and have fun. Sleep is not necessary. Vivian, so you suddenly contacted me because you have something important to say? After all, you wouldn't have contacted me if there was nothing important. Feng Qi, I recently received an important piece of information from Jiahui. If possible, I hope you can use the memory implantation technology to bring this technology to the other me. Vivian, tell me more about the technology. Feng Qi, the Future Research Institute has part of the psionic technology provided by the Science and Technology Research Institute. Obviously, the Science and Technology Research Institute doesn't intend to disclose this information to the public, so I want to bring this technology back to reality. Vivian, if you want to talk about this, I'm not sleepy anymore. Tell me what you think. Feng Qi, I plan to transfer the psionic technology to the Scarlet Institute after I bring it back to the real world. I have an idea now. I want to turn the Scarlet Institute into an all-round research institute and equip you with the technology one got from the future. Vivian, young man, your path has broadened beauty. JPG, Feng Qi, it can't be helped. Right now, the Science and Technology Research Institute and the Tiger Soul Institute are both under the control of the Domain faction. The two main paths of human development have been cut off, so I plan to let the Scarlet Institute carry out the technology and innovation. As for the technology, I will find a way to obtain it from the future. Vivian, oh, so the Scarlet Institute will become a superpower in the future? Feng Qi, if my plan succeeds, then yes. Vivian, rubbing hands expectantly. Feng Qi, I'm just afraid that you won't be able to digest too much technology. When the time comes, there will be a huge gap in manpower. Vivian, that's not a problem. As long as we have the relevant technology, we can recruit people. Besides, don't we have you? When the time comes, you can give us a big gift of a talent list. Feng Qi, that's what I was thinking. I've placed this information in the sewer next to the Starlight Cafe in the East District of the Future Research Institute. Come and get it as soon as possible. Vivian, I'll arrange it. Vivian, by the way, have other human spies contacted you recently? Feng Qi, not at the moment. Wei, Sai, actually, I can understand what those hidden forces are thinking. Before we know that you have the ability to travel through the timeline, we, the Scarlet Research Institute, won't take the initiative to contact you after seeing your risky behavior. It's better to continue our anti-infiltration plan so that you don't cause the plan to fail. Feng Qi, so what I need to do now is to continue increasing the strength and influence of Breaking Dawn. I believe that there will be others like Li Xingchen who will appear. Vivian, good luck, little brother Feng Qi. After chatting for a while, Feng Qi turned off his phone. He had personally experienced how powerful spiritual technology was when he was sacrificed. This was a super advanced technology that could change the entire structure of human weapons. At this stage, the weapons used by humans were all forged from special spirit ores. Compared to spiritual weapons, they were far inferior. Spiritual technology was equivalent to enchantment weapons that were originally made from spiritual ores. While changing the internal structure of the weapon, it also engraved array patterns. For example, a weapon engraved with an absorbing array had the special effect of automatically absorbing spiritual energy from heaven and earth and transferring it into the user's body. Another example was a weapon engraved with a killing array. Every time it was used, the spiritual energy from heaven and earth would automatically form the corresponding killing array, greatly increasing the weapon's lethality. This technological innovation was extraordinary. Obviously, the Research Institute wouldn't release the information on spiritual technology to the public, so Feng Qi thought of a way. He planned to steal this part of the technical information, obtain the results of a Science and Technology Research Institute from a physical level, and then let the Scarlet Research Institute announce it. It just so happened that the Research Institute had some information on spiritual technology. Li Xingqian's successor, Jia Hui, didn't refuse his request and immediately gave him the information. Just now, he contacted Vivian to let the Scarlet Institute take the relevant information. This was undoubtedly killing two birds with one stone. Not only would it increase the Scarlet Institute's influence, but it would also allow spiritual technology to be popularized. In the future, when Lao Wang came up with a method to crack flesh sacrifice, it would definitely be released under the name of the Scarlet Institute. Therefore, increasing the overall strength and influence of the Scarlet Research Institute was a beneficial thing for him and the future of the entire human race. Right now, the Research Institute was a treasure trove in his eyes. Through the Research Institute, he could obtain a lot of super advanced technology from the Research Institute. If he could really get all the technology from the Research Institute, maybe the Scarlet Institute could create something similar to Xiao Hei's spiritual nano-insect technology. But after thinking about it carefully, he felt that it was unrealistic. Spiritual nano-insects were the core technology of the Research Institute. It was impossible to share it with the Research Institute. Even if he obtained the technology to create spiritual nano-insects, it would be impossible to create Xiao Hei. The narrator once said that Xiao Hei must be created from some super material. He had no way to obtain this super material. While thinking, he walked out the alley under the dim light. It was already late at night. The streets were very quiet and there were no passers-by. After waiting for a while under the streetlight, Lu Yu's figure appeared beside him. "You stink." Hearing Lu Yu's words, Feng Qi lowered his head and sniffed. Then he smiled. "It's the sewer. It smells a bit." As he spoke, the rune crystal on his chest flashed. The light swept across his body and clothes, dispelling the smell. He turned his head to look at Lu Yu. He was still carrying the sword on his back, dressed like a modern swordsman. "Where have you been sleeping?" "Forest Park. The environment there is more comfortable." Feng Qi nodded when he heard that. "Let's go to the next target." As soon as he finished speaking, he took the lead and walked towards the west of the city. Seeing this, Lu Yu immediately chose to follow. In the following time, they started to recruit new members according to the list provided by Li Xingqian. This was what Feng Qi often did during this period. Those who could be on the assassination list of the Technology Research Institute were all talents with great influence in their respective fields. With their addition, it would be a huge help to the growth of Daybreak. At this stage, he temporarily gave up on the confrontation with the Technology Research Institute and planned to develop Daybreak as the core direction. 2 years later, at 1 a.m., Feng Qi wore tattered clothes and leaned against the streetlight to read the information on his encrypted phone. In the past 2 years, Daybreak, with the help of Jia Hui, secretly established a huge intelligence network in the future city. Now, in addition to the initial core members, Daybreak had teachers from the Technology Research Institute and staff from the Spirit Ray Research Institute, as well as members from other industries. Every night, they would gather the useful information and hand it over to their superiors. Then, it would be passed down layer by layer. Finally, the gathered information would reach Feng Qi's hands. After being busy for the past few years, Feng Qi's way of dealing with problems had gradually matured. He managed Daybreak in an orderly manner. However, Daybreak's development was also facing difficulties. For safety reasons, Daybreak didn't have a stronghold. All the members only communicated with their own contacts. Apart from having a list of all the members, sometimes two members wouldn't recognize each other when they met. While increasing their safety, the organization structure was relatively lax. They were unable to gather strength to fight against external forces. What gave Feng-Chi a headache was that there were still no other human spies coming to contact them. He had two guesses about this. First, the human spies had their own plans for the future and didn't want to form an alliance with the weak Daybreak. They felt that this was a very risky action. Second, the human spies were the same as the Technology Research Institute. Even if they wanted to, they wouldn't be able to come into contact with Daybreak members. This guess was completely valid. Over the past year, Daybreak had chosen to develop in the dark. They basically didn't fight against the Technology Research Institute. So the Technology Research Institute wasn't able to find them who had completely integrated into Future City. However, this also meant that the human spies who wanted to come into contact with them wouldn't be able to find a way to contact them. This was undoubtedly a difficult situation. If they chose to expose themselves, they might be able to establish contact with the human spies, but the risk would increase greatly. They might be wiped out by the domain powers behind the Technology Research Institute at any moment. If they chose to hide, they wouldn't know which other human spies there were. Feng-Chi, Vivian, and the other higher-ups of the Scarlet Institute discussed what to do. In the end, there were only two paths in front of Feng-Chi. The first was to continue developing Daybreak in the dark and wait for the right time to rise up and overthrow the Technology Research Institute's rule over Future City. However, if he wanted to walk down this path, he would face many difficulties and the success rate would be very low. After all, Daybreak was an underground organization and there was a limit to how much they could develop in the dark. Without a base, they wouldn't be able to gather strength. The only thing that could support Daybreak was the Future Research Institute, which controlled a portion of the city's defense forces and top-notch squadrons. However, with the Future Research Institute's strength, they had no chance of winning against the domain powers behind the Technology Research Institute. If he wanted to walk down this path, the best choice would be to move Daybreak out of Future City and leave only a portion of the organization members to continue investigating. However, after thinking about it carefully, Feng-Chi realized that this was the path that Mu Qing had chosen. After she left the city, she chose to develop outside and relied on the strength of the scavengers to quickly strengthen Lemincan. Later on, she launched an attack on the major cities. Thinking of this, he suddenly felt the same way. Only after experiencing it did he know how difficult it was to walk down this path. As for the second path, it was even more dangerous. They had to reveal the truth to the world and reveal that the Technology Research Institute was controlled by the domain powers. This path wasn't easy to walk, but there was a turning point now. Back then, Daybreak's influence was extremely limited. Even if they revealed the truth, the world wouldn't choose to believe them. The only outcome was that the Technology Research Institute controlled public opinion and attacked them. However, at this stage, there were already many members of Daybreak who had great influence in Future City. Among them, there were teachers, scholars, researchers, and so on. If he chose this path, he needed all the members of Daybreak to announce the truth to the outside world. At that time, the influence they could have would be huge. Even if the Technology Research Institute wanted to stop the public opinion from fermenting, it would be difficult for them to continue spreading the information. At that time, the Scarlet Institute in Star City would also secretly cooperate and add fuel to the fire in Star City. However, this path was undoubtedly a choice that had nothing to lose. Choosing this path was equivalent to choosing to expose themselves. As for what would happen after being exposed, the first thing that could be confirmed was that Daybreak would definitely be destroyed by the Technology Research Institute. As for what would happen after that, it was full of uncertainty. Feng-Chi and the Scarlet Institute's upper echelons discussed and thought of three outcomes. 1. The hidden human forces would reveal themselves and even launch a joint operation against the Technology Research Institute. If this guess was correct, the Scarlet Institute would help him mark all the hidden human forces and then give the information to him in the future. It was equivalent to relying on exposure to find a group of similar forces. 2. The various hidden human forces would choose to continue hiding and not show themselves. If this was the result, Daybreak's exposure operation would be a complete failure, and they wouldn't obtain any useful information. However, it wasn't that there was no turning point. 3. the human society would be shaken and many knowledgeable people would choose to stand up and launch an investigation against the Technology Research Institute. They would gradually form an alliance and launch a joint operation against the Technology Research Institute. Since the future timeline that he chose to go against the Technology Research Institute could cause the world 1,500 years later to change drastically, one of the choices had to be correct. Choosing to continue hiding or being exposed could be the way to break out of this situation. Feng Qi was hesitant about what to choose. If he chose correctly, he would be able to see the people 1,500 years later in the real world. However, if he chose wrongly, only little cripple would be able to meet the other him. The plan of this future timeline was to let the other him come into contact with the people in the future and obtain more information. Time passed. As he pondered, Feng Qi sighed. Then, his gaze became firm. He made a decision at this moment. He chose to reveal the truth to the world. Chapter 180. 2 years later, in the center of Future City. 8 o'clock at night. Feng Qi was wearing a trench coat as he walked with Lu Yu on the road leading to the television station building in the center of Future City. There were towering buildings on both sides, and above them were maglev vehicles shuttling back and forth in an orderly manner. Virtual images were projected on the road along the way. Everything here was filled with a sense of technology. But behind the prosperity, darkness quietly spread and shrouded. Everyone was living in a world of lies. The purpose of his trip was to expose the lies and attempt to extend the life of human civilization. In the past 2 years, he had arranged everything. This included transferring the technology obtained by the Future Research Institute from the Research Institute to the Scarlet Institute. At the same time, he had also made detailed arrangements on how to reveal the truth to the world. One thing was certain: when he announced the truth to the world, all the Breaking Dawn members who stood out would definitely be in danger. Therefore, he arranged for them to leave Future City in advance. When the time came, they only needed to speak up through the network. This was also what he could do for them in the final moments of his life. He only brought Lu Yu with him to the television station in the center of Future City. At this moment, he turned to Lu Yu and said with a smile, "When we break into the television station, just buy me 10 minutes. Then, leave as soon as possible. 10 minutes is too short. I'll guard for you for a while longer. You'll die. Aren't you the same?" Lu Yu said expressionlessly. "Cut the crap. You're still useful, so you have to live longer than me. I don't need you to die with me." After a moment of silence, Lu Yu suddenly asked, "After all these years, have you ever wavered?" Looking at the night scene of the bustling city in front of him, Feng Qi smiled. "I once doubted the meaning of perseverance, but when I crossed the river of time and fought side by side with my peers and listened to the stories they left behind in the river of time, I truly understood the weight and greatness behind upholding the righteousness in my heart. There are many things a person can pursue in life: success, wealth, being a person full of wisdom, being a person in the limelight. But actually, it's also very cool to be a person who always upholds his dreams." Hearing this, a smile appeared on LVU's face. "It's cool." 10 minutes later, they arrived at the square in front of the central TV station. In the center of the square stood a tall building with the appearance of a mechanical arm. This building was also the target of Feng Qi's trip, the TV tower. At this moment, Lu Yu pulled out the sword billow from his back. "Today, I'll make an exception for you. Whoever blocks, you will be killed without mercy. Take it easy." Although the TV station is controlled by the Science and Technology Research Institute, there are still many ordinary people who don't know about it. "I can tell." Looking at the serious Lu Yu, Feng Qi smiled and patted his shoulder. "Thank you for traveling with us." With that, he walked towards the TV station. When they arrived at the entrance of the TV station, the security guard on duty immediately questioned them sternly. Lu Yu waved his sword billow at this moment. The sword light stirred up a breeze, brushing past the bodies of several security guards, instantly knocking them out. Feng Qi didn't stop and walked straight into the building. He already had a detailed understanding of the terrain here, and he had rehearsed this operation dozens of times in his mind. He followed the route on the map to the elevator and pressed the elevator button. At this moment, The alarm in the building was blaring, and a large number of security guards rushed in from all directions. Feng-Chi didn't look back. Lu Yu was the sharpest sword in his hand. He had confidence in Lu Yu. At this moment, Lu Yu, who was standing behind him, had his back facing him. The sword billow quickly spun in his hand and suddenly swung forward. In an instant, all the security guards that rushed over were knocked back by the sword energy. Many of them were elite soldiers that retired from the domain battle group, but in front of Lu Yu, they were still vulnerable. Ding! The elevator arrived at the first floor, and Feng-Chi stepped into the elevator. Lu Yu also followed him in. At this moment, a large number of security guards were lying on the ground outside. When the elevator arrived at the 8th floor and the elevator door opened, the sound of guns being loaded could be heard. Then a barrage of bullets came. Lu Yu stood in front of him. His sword intent condensed into an invisible sword shield, blocking the rain of bullets. When the sword billow suddenly bloomed with a dazzling light, a strong sword energy shock wave swept forward. The combat personnel in front of him fell backwards, and the windows were shattered by the sword energy. Breaking dawn. Feng-Chi? Lu Yu? At this moment, the only man still standing looked at them and asked in a deep voice. Feng-Chi didn't answer. He walked along the right corridor towards the broadcasting room. At this moment, Lu Yu pointed at his glabella with one hand, and a sword eye formed between his glabella. At this moment, he saw the death mark in the body of the man blocking his way. Who let you go? I'm still here. The man looked at Feng-Chi and angrily rebuked. But before he finished speaking, his expression suddenly became frightened. A line of blood appeared on his forehead and spread down from his forehead. In the end, he was cut in half and fell to the ground. After killing the enemy, Lu Yu immediately followed Feng-Chi's footsteps. When he pushed open the broadcasting room's door, he saw many frightened faces inside. Let's go. Feng-Chi immediately said coldly and made a path for them. The staff in the broadcasting room didn't hesitate. They jogged along the path Feng-Chi made and left the broadcasting room. Lu Yu, buy me 10 minutes. Then you can leave first. Okay. Lu Yu immediately agreed and turned to leave. When he came to the news broadcast room, Feng-Chi sat down and looked at the video recorder that was still on. He began to say the words that he had said countless times in his heart. In the outside world, seeing the sudden situation on the news broadcast, the screen that was supposed to broadcast the situation at the front line suddenly changed to Feng-Chi. The audience watching the news broadcast was dumbfounded. As a person on the Future Cities bounty list, they naturally recognized who Feng-Chi was. They suddenly realized that the television station seemed to have been taken over by the reactionary human force, Daybreak. While feeling angry, they still patiently chose to continue watching. They wanted to see what kind of infuriating words Feng-Chi was going to say. The criticism turned into bullet comments that streaked across the screen. It was nothing more than insults and curses. Feng-Chi could see the bullet comments on the side of the screen, but he wasn't moved and continued to speak. His tone was calm, but what he said was unbelievable to the audience. His words tore apart the lies and showed the bloody reality to the world. But in the eyes of the world, the cruel truth he spoke was a lie. They still firmly believed that humans were walking toward victory step by step. Even if they couldn't see the arrival of the glorious era, their descendants would be able to see the arrival of that day. The content of the bullet comments proved that the world didn't believe what he said. But what Feng-Chi wanted to do was to plant a seed of doubt in the hearts of the world. When I looked through history, I didn't see the truth. I only saw enemies in disguise, standing under the sun, standing on a moral high ground, and deciding the future of our human civilization. The real warriors could only hibernate in the darkness, searching for a chance of survival. The truth was cruel. While revealing the truth, he only spoke of hope and not despair. He didn't want people to be defeated by the cruel truth. He hoped that they could choose to stand up. Just like those martyrs who weren't willing to compromise and let the world be swallowed by the domain at the beginning of the cataclysm. At this moment, outside the television station building, Lu Yu hugged Jianlan and looked ahead coldly. After losing control of the television station, the Science and Technology Research Institute reacted quickly. Their subordinate battle groups quickly rushed over. Military vehicles arrived one after another and stopped in the square of the television station. The combat personnel were quickly deployed. The first batch of soldiers took the lead to attack Lu Yu. Sword intent surged in Lu Yu's body. With a wave of his hand, the sword intent rushed forward. Whoever dares to step forward will die. In the face of Lu Yu's warning, these soldiers ignored it and attacked Lu Yu one after another. Jianlan disappeared from Lu Yu's hand in a flash and suddenly pierced the neck of the soldier running at the front. Then, without slowing down, it passed through one figure after another. Blood bloomed in the crowd. He once said that Jianlan would not kill his own kind. This sentence was the heart of the sword when he first cultivated the sword force. If he broke the restriction, it was equivalent to denying his own heart of the sword. If his heart of the sword was broken, the sword intent would definitely dissipate. But at this moment, he chose to violate the oath in his heart. However, his heart of the sword was not shaken at all. Instead, it grew stronger. At this moment, he followed his heart. The blood in his body was boiling. Kill! As he roared, the surging sword intent came out of his body. His long hair danced as he waved his sword. More and more enemies came, wave after wave, but he didn't retreat half a step. 10 minutes passed quickly. He didn't keep his promise to Feng Qi. He chose to continue standing in front of the building. One sword to defeat 10,000 enemies. 1,000 miles of swift wind. In his eyes, there were some things that were worth protecting with his life. At this moment, Lu Yu was like an impassable wall, blocking the enemies who came dauntlessly. Silhouettes kept falling under his sword, becoming ghosts under his sword. His clothes were torn in the battle. Blood dripped from the tip of his sword, but there was no fear of death on his face. In the battle, the speed at which he waved his sword became slower and slower. Several bloody wounds appeared on his body. In the face of Lu Yu, who was unafraid of death, the soldiers at the front didn't dare to move forward. But with the arrival of reinforcements, led by the commanders of several domain battle groups, they pounced on Lu Yu again. They wanted to kill him and take back control of the TV station. His body became more and more tired. His sword moves became less and less smooth. At this moment, the current commander of the bloodthirsty wolf battle group suddenly attacked Lu Yu from the side. He knocked Lu Yu to the ground and then swung his short knife at Lu Yu's neck. In the face of this attack, Lu Yu's eyes turned white. Sword intent surged out of his body like a surging tide. Under the control of his sword intent, Sword Billow suddenly stabbed toward the commander of the bloodthirsty wolf battle group. In the face of Lu Yu's life-risking attack, the commander of the bloodthirsty wolf battle group decisively chose to defend. Sword Billow emitted a brilliant light. It shattered the short knife and slashed across the enemy's neck. A head with open eyes was sent flying into the air. Lu Yu stood up again. He was bathed in blood. Sword Billow floated beside him and kept buzzing. It was like a talisman that hastened one's death. It seemed that if anyone dared to take another step forward, it would take that person's life. But soon, the enemies attacked again. Under the leadership of the various domain battle groups, they once again launched an attack. Lu Yu's body was dyed red with blood. His increasingly tired body was no longer able to fight as recklessly as before. As the number of injuries on his body increased, Lu Yu's consciousness started to blur. After swinging his sword and killing another enemy, he staggered back 2 steps. As his consciousness blurred, the image of Feng Qi laughing and teasing him suddenly appeared in his mind. Lu Yu, you're just a stubborn donkey. You don't know how to be flexible. Looking at the crowd charging toward him again, he grinned. You're right. As long as I live, hope will not be extinguished. Kill. The hope in Lu Yu's eyes was the man he was protecting behind him. Sword Billow seemed to know that its master was determined to die. It trembled and let out a sorrowful cry. Blood blurred his vision, but his sword followed his heart and continued to slash at his enemies. Sword intent burst forth with a dazzling light. It was even more dazzling than the stars in the night sky. Before his consciousness completely blurred, Lu Yu swung his sword one last time. Wherever the sword energy passed, a several-meter-deep trench was plowed into the ground. The sword energy continued to sweep forward. Wherever it passed, the enemies were all sliced into pieces. This sword energy pushed forward several hundred meters before dissipating. At this time, the TV station square had been completely destroyed. Only the TV station behind Liu Yu was still intact. Looking at Liu Yu, who was supporting his body with his sword, no one dared to take a step forward. Feeling the vitality in his body gradually fading away, he looked at the frightened enemies in front of him and smiled. At this time, he was glowing with glory. His face was ruddy. "I don't regret traveling with you." The flame of life was extinguished at this moment. The smile remained on his face. His body was still supporting himself and didn't fall down. The wind blew past his blood-stained cheeks and his long hair fluttered. Sword Billow suddenly shattered at this moment. It chose to accompany its master. It didn't want its master to walk alone in the netherworld. In the TV station, at the same time, when Feng Qi revealed the truth to the world, the members of Breaking Dawn also stood up and spoke out. They used their influence in forums, tieba, group chats. Everywhere they could reach, they roared unyieldingly. At this time, the internet was in an uproar. From the initial scolding, different voices gradually appeared. Why do I feel that what Feng Qi said is true? My teacher also stood up and spoke out. I'm wavering. Is the Science and Technology Research Institute really occupied by a domain creature? This is too scary. I still don't dare to believe it. I don't believe it. Every year, the Science and Technology Research Institute will release a series of technologies that will promote the advancement of human civilization. Isn't it stupid for a domain creature to do this? If the Science and Technology Research Institute is really controlled by a domain creature, the consequences will be unimaginable. I'm online waiting for the Science and Technology Research Institute to come out and prove themselves. Looking at the comments on the screen on the right, Feng Qi knew that he had achieved the effect he wanted. A seed of doubt had been planted. Now he just needed to wait for time to water it until one day it took root and sprouted. It would stir up the long river of history and have a profound impact on the future. At this time, a commotion came from outside. Realizing that he didn't have time to continue, he looked at the camera and smiled. Peers, I'm calling on you to stand up and fight for the continuation of the human race. As soon as he finished speaking, the door of the broadcast studio was violently broken open. Figures in black uniforms pounced on him one after another. Feng Qi stood up and chose to fight the enemy. He knew that his timeline was nearing the end. At this moment, it was just like that time. The only thing that didn't change was the unyielding will in his heart. He didn't compromise or lower his head at all. Chapter 181, Science and Technology Research Institute, Underground Water Prison. Feng Qi's hands were hung by special metal chains and soaked in a turbid liquid. When a specially concocted turbid liquid came into contact with his skin, it made his body extremely itchy. It brought both physical and mental torture. He had the special ability to liquefy, but the metal material that bound his hands had the same effect as the spirit energy Forbidden Zone. He couldn't use the power of the rune crystal to liquefy it. He was very familiar with the environment here. In the previous sacrifice line, when he commanded the 3rd Division of the Science and Technology Research Institute, he came here a lot. He was very familiar with the process of the punishment here. But this time, he changed from the executioner to the victim. He was reliving everything here in a different way. He had been like this for 3 days. He didn't know what happened in the outside world. Just yesterday, he was sent to the trial. It was just a formality, but in the end, he still couldn't escape the fate of death. When he thought about his impending death, he didn't have the slightest fear in his heart. The end of this timeline would lead to a new beginning. His end was just another starting point for him. He already had the will to face death calmly. At this moment, there was no fear in his heart. What was there to be afraid of? At this moment, a black shadow quietly appeared on the grid-shaped iron plate above his head. It looked down at Feng Qi, who was soaked in the water prison, and said with a hoarse voice, "I still don't understand. Can you tell me the answer?" Feng Qi heard this and looked up. He saw the familiar black shadow through the grid. The black shadow continued to speak. "Actually, We already noticed you when you posted that you wanted to study the virtual reality game. However, when we found out that you weren't human and that there might be a powerful force behind you, we gave up on trying to find out more about you. As long as it doesn't conflict with our interests, you can continue to develop your super virtual game. No matter what plans you have in the human civilization, we won't interfere with you. We can coexist peacefully, but I really don't understand what you did next. Fighting against us for humanity? What exactly are you after? Looking at the Black Shadow, Feng Qi smiled faintly. Obviously, the Black Shadow still thought of him as a domain creature in human skin. He did not explain, nor did he want to explain. Unfortunately, the truth word device has not been developed yet. You must be sentenced to death as soon as possible. Otherwise, I will use the truth word device to learn your secrets. Are you scared? Feng Qi asked with a smile. The Black Shadow nodded his head without hesitation. Your actions have indeed frightened me. Public opinion is spreading far too quickly. If you really succeed, our future plans may be for naught. But now, everything is still under control. I only need to send you to the execution ground to give the entire human race an explanation. The Black Shadow paused for a moment, then continued. The members of your Breaking Dawn organization who stood out and spoke out won't be able to escape the same fate as you. They'll follow in your footsteps. Hearing this, Feng Qi's heart sank. He had planned for a long time to reveal the truth to the world. Logically speaking, with so many influential people speaking out, the Science and Technology Research Institute should be in a predicament. More importantly, he took the risk of revealing the truth this time because he hoped to see the human forces hiding in the dark step forward. At that time, the Scarlet Institute would mark these human forces and pass the information to his other self. But from the Black Shadow's words, he understood. It seemed like the storm of public opinion had been suppressed by the Science and Technology Research Institute. And the human forces hiding in the dark also did not make any moves. There were only two possibilities in front of him. First, the human forces were not willing to step forward to promote public opinion and chose to fight head-on. Second, there were no other human forces hiding in the dark. No matter which possibility was the truth, his plan seemed to have failed. I have a guess about your identity. I'm guessing that you don't have any forces supporting you. You're just an ambitious person from a small clan who wants to participate in this game alone. Am I right? Hearing this, Feng Qi sneered in his heart. Obviously, the Black Shadow still thought of him as a domain creature and did not think of him as a human. He could understand this. After all, the domain creature that came to assassinate him saw him with his innate ability and activated his blood source form. In the information that the assassins gave to the Science and Technology Research Institute, they must have reported that he had other forms and that his human form was just a disguise. At the same time, he also had rune crystals on him. It was impossible to determine his true identity from his appearance. Because of this, the Black Shadow, who thought that he knew something about him, would preemptively think that he was a domain creature. Thinking of this, he decided to try to get some information from the Black Shadow. Aren't you afraid of offending the forces behind me? He raised his head and asked with a cold expression. I'm guessing that you don't have any forces behind you. At the same time, we're not afraid of being challenged by any forces. I can answer your question, but you have to answer a question before I die. So what is your question? What are your plans for the future? Faced with this question, the Black Shadow suddenly laughed. Even if you're about to die, this is not something you should know. I'm not interested in your secrets now. As soon as the Black Shadow finished speaking, it disappeared on the spot. Feng Qi felt a little regretful. He thought that now that he was a prisoner, the Black Shadow would let down its guard and maybe reveal some secrets to him. But obviously, the Black Shadow didn't want to satisfy his curiosity. Even if he used a groundless secret in exchange, the Black Shadow wouldn't be willing to tell him why the forces in his domain integrated into human society and the secrets of their plans. 3 days later, the day of the execution arrived as scheduled. In the morning, Feng Qi was paraded through the streets by the city guards. At this time, Feng Qi was in a sorry state. After soaking in water for a few days, his rune crystals were shattered. His life was connected to the rune crystals, so he lost a lot of his vitality. In just one night, he seemed to have aged a few decades. His hair was already white. The passers-by looked at him with complicated expressions. There was anger, disgust, and other emotions. But he also saw confusion and confusion in the eyes of the passers-by. He thought that his plan had completely failed, but from the eyes of the passers-by, he knew that the seeds he planted had been planted in the hearts of the people. They were already suspicious of what they were saying. Perhaps one day in the future, this suspicion would grow into a towering tree and pierce through the world of lies. But he wouldn't be able to see this scene. After a few hours, he was brought to the execution ground and was escorted to sit on the torture chair that Li Xingchen used to sit on. Looking at the crowd in front of him, Feng Qi chose to face it calmly. Ever since he obtained the ability to travel through dreams, he knew that his life's trajectory wouldn't be one of following the flow. No matter how many of him fell, there would always be another one of him. Time passed, but his original intention didn't change. But in this timeline that was about to come to an end, he still had a lot of regrets. For this attempt, all of his comrades in the Breaking Dawn organization would have to pay with their lives. But the human forces he had been looking for didn't appear. Thinking of this, he felt pity and sighed. Before he died, he suddenly thought of Lu Yu. The parting of life and death seemed to have happened yesterday. When he was escorted out of the TV station building, he saw Lu Yu still standing at the door. Over the years, Lu Yu had been protecting him like a loyal guard. Many times, Lu Yu had risked his life to protect him and brought him out of danger. The last time was no exception. Lu Yu used his life to block in front of him and bought him as much time as possible. He was serious and stubborn. He was Feng Qi's best brother in the past few years. From the perspective of looking through the historical database, the relationship between Lu Yu and him was just a few paragraphs in the historical records. But only by personally experiencing it could one understand the meaning behind it. Lu Yu once said to him, he hoped that one day they could see the sun together and not meet each other late at night. He joked and replied, "On the day of success, we will embrace the first ray of light in the future city together." And this was the meaning of the Breaking Dawn organization's name. But when he saw Lu Yu's vitality dissipating, he knew he had gone back on his words. Lu Yu would forever remain in yesterday's memory. Prepare for the execution. At this time, a voice came from the broadcast. The two executioners turned around and walked to the switch of the spirit chair, waiting for the final order. Looking at the crowd in front of him, Feng Qi smiled indifferently. After running around for a lifetime, the curtain finally came to an end. At this time, because of the broken rune crystal, his hair had turned white. Before the execution, his eyes seemed to be smiling, yet not smiling, as if he had seen through everything, but also as if he still had a lot of regrets for this world. In his clear eyes, a new starting point was reflected. Whether he was a historical sinner or a historical hero, his merits and demerits will be left for future generations to judge. But he firmly believed that one day, the flower that carried his and his peers' dreams would bloom brightly in the soil of the Golden Age. He believed that after thousands of sales and tribulations, the other him would not extinguish the passion in his heart and would always rush to the path of his dreams. Feng Qi fly. When it was time for the execution, the executioner was about to press the switch. At this time, a figure appeared on the execution platform. He was wearing tattered ascetic clothes and holding a book with one hand, looking straight at Feng Qi. Seeing the monk's arrival, Feng Qi was filled with doubts. The monk had already left Breaking Dawn and parted ways with them after graduation. He did not know why the monk had come at this time. Was he not afraid of being too close to him and being implicated? At this time, the monk flipped open the book in his hand and began to read the sutra loudly. The city defense army also moved at this time and surrounded the monk. "Monk, let's go." The monk remained unmoved as he recited the scripture word by word. But just as the city defense army was about to close in, he suddenly stopped reciting. He looked at the book and scratched his head in confusion. Why don't I understand the meaning of this paragraph? Oh, this sentence means F***ck them. The moment he finished speaking, the monk's aura suddenly changed. He said coldly, "Where are the warriors of Prajna domain?" "Here." Hundreds of warriors hidden in the crowd roared in unison. At this time, another burly figure jumped onto the execution platform. He looked at Feng Qi and smiled. "I'm late." Then, he turned around and roared, "Where are the warriors of the victory battle team?" The moment he finished speaking, the ground shook. It was the tremor caused by the warriors hidden in the crowd, stomping their feet in unison. "Where are the brothers of the Future Research Institute?" At some point, Jia Hui had also appeared in the crowd and jumped onto the execution platform. Roar! Roars erupted from both inside and outside the execution platform. They were using this method to tell Feng Qi that they were all colleagues and had responded to the summons. Seeing more and more figures stand out, Feng Qi was shocked. He subconsciously looked at the monk. "Monk, you've hidden yourself well." When the monk heard this, he smiled and winked at him. "Miss Feng, you didn't ask me,